A hand grabs onto a rock to stand up in front of the demon, while the young man wonders if God was no longer alive. Humanity worshipped gold and revered arcane engineering until they became slaves to themselves. With the sword in front of him, the man asks if this was truly fair, but the demon simply draws its weapon. The boy charges forward, wanting to know what meaning there was in all of this, shouting before attacking the monster and causing an explosion in the area. The best modern post-apocalyptic fantasy game, Arcane Soul. Kim Junsu, a 22-year-old student, complains about the game being pay to win, asking how that was fair when a guy who spends nothing can barely enjoy the game. However, the in-game demon says he was strong for someone who didn't spend money there, and says it must be sad to be him, since he's playing in auto mode all the time, and Kim Junsu curses at him. The creature says it was a fun fight because it had never seen a free-to-play player perform so well. Junsu curses at the demon again through the phone screen, asking how this game was fair since he just lost to a dumbass and has over 10,000 hours in it, because it's literally a pay-to-win game. But he thinks the idiot is actually him, because he keeps wasting time in a game like this and still does daily missions before working, having no social life at all. Even after winning that, he thought the game's free spin would give him another Kim warrior. However, he looks surprised at his phone. A white chest appears on his screen, and the guy wonders about the platinum chest, wanting to know what it was, and shouting about it right after, since he got the SSR level character, Celestial Demon. He says that was the best unit in the game, and the chance of getting it from a free spin was 0.000006%. So he gets excited for having gotten the rarest character in the game, which would surely be the game of the year for 2024. He says he'll level up that character, since it can be upgraded just by defeating monsters, but the easiest way to level up characters in the game was using characters he had already leveled up before, and now he's no longer jealous of the hares who spend millions on the game, deciding to use all of his Kim warriors to level up the Celestial Demon, saying goodbye to his Kims, because now he has a Celestial Demon. Another car approaches while the young man is off guard, almost running over the student. He wonders if this was really about to happen to him, but suddenly wakes up alone. He was bandaged and wonders what happened, wanting to know why he was in the hospital now. His head hurts for a moment, remembering the truck in front of him, and just before it hit him, it tried to turn but hit him straight on. Junsu remembers that he got hit by a truck. A nurse enters the room suddenly and asks if Warrior Kim has finally woken up. She says she'll call a doctor, and the guy wonders why she's calling him that. That was Warrior Kim, a 22-year-old man who ended up in the hospital with dislocated and injured limbs due to an accident. Junsu says that it really says Warrior Kim and wonders what that means, because it felt like he was being punished for using his Kim warriors to level up the Celestial Demon, but out of nowhere he became a Kim himself, suddenly touching his foot to the floor and feeling extreme pain throughout his body. The guy lets out a terrifying scream. The nurse rushes over, asking Warrior Kim not to move, but Junsu just complains that it hurts a lot. The doctor says he was hit by a truck and passed out, but now they need to run some tests, because he needs a magical MRI and an arcane X-ray, and Junsu repeats that in confusion, wanting to know what they were talking about with this Warrior Kim and magic. At the hospital reception, Kim is there. A woman calculates that, with the emergency room, hospitalization, magical X-ray, MRI, and other exams, all of it would cost 22 million won. Kim Junsu wonders why he has to pay 22 million if he stayed there for 4 days, but the woman tells him he doesn't have insurance, so he has to pay it all, which just annoys the guy, saying every Korean has government health coverage. The girl wants to know what national government even is because he has no Legion contract or Magic Tower insurance. The guy repeats that and asks what she's talking about, but he remembers those names from somewhere, trying to recall where he saw them before, because there was the Legion, the mega corporations, the Divine Tower, and the Holy Order, the 4 dominant factions of Seoul, and the same groups from the game Arcane. In a world where God abandoned humanity, arcane science developed greatly. The polluted land was filled with monsters, and humans modified their bodies to survive. The boy thinks it all sucks. To put it simply, it was a hard world to live in, and he had been thrown right into it. He was heading home happily after obtaining the Celestial Demon, but ended up becoming a tutorial character in the game, and maybe this was his divine judgment from the warriors. The room of Warrior Kim was smaller than the students, making him wonder why he was so poor. His body was completely broken, and he didn't even have money, not knowing what to do. Because if this really was Arcane Soul, soon events like nuclear wars and dimensional rifts, and the resurrection of the ancient gods would happen, turning this place into a hell. He doesn't know how he ended up there, but standing still would guarantee he'd lose his life. But he notices something different, wondering if his reasoning was right. Kim points at his pen, preparing to stab his own hand. He thinks he needs to check this before it's too late. He stabs his hand with the pen. Blood suddenly starts to flow from it, but the wound emits a green glow and heals right after. Junsu thinks he knew this would work, since he acquired the trait Wound Regeneration, and that was the reason he had evolved countless warrior Kims. He's a tutorial character and supposedly the only one without a base skill. However, he can unlock his traits and change them, making them more diverse than other characters, and for a strategist like him, that was better than being rare. In other words, now that he is warrior Kim, he can gain any trait he wants, regenerating all the injuries in his body. Arcane Soul. In this world, you lose your life if you're poor or weak. If lucky, you'd run away. But he wouldn't run, nor would he lose his life, because he would survive, having 10,000 hours of Arcane Soul experience as a free-to-play player, reaching global rank 9. Junsu gets ready to begin his journey. Inside the body of warrior Kim, he heads to a place called the Player Character Office. A bearded man asks if it's warrior Kim's first time at a player character office. The guy confirms and says he plans to get into the mana purification business, while thinking he needs money for this terrible role since all he got was a warrior Kim, and that's the only way to make money. The man puts his foot on the table and says it can be called mana purification, but asks if he really knows what dungeons are like, introducing himself as Choi Xiansu, director of the player office. Junsu says he knows, but the director questions it, pointing out there's nothing on his record saying he's ever been in a dungeon. Kim thinks he knew how terrible this job was, because there was something called contaminated mana, the reason monsters had taken over Arcane Soul. Dungeon cleansing is the act of removing filth that emits high levels of contaminated mana. High exposure to this mana can kill a person. All the boy agonizes, being consumed by the mana, turning into a demon afterward, because it can cause mutation, making the job even more dangerous. Shinsu says that once they have more people, he'll call him for a team, and the boy thanks him, but the director wants to be sure. He's seen plenty like Kim come looking for money and return completely broken. Even so, the boy tells the boss to relax, because he'll be better than him, surprising the director. But working hard was warrior Kim's specialty. He had 10,000 hours of playtime. The team leader, Servo, asks why a rookie wants to join his team, but Kim says he doesn't know. He just came to work and was sent to that team. Servo grabs him by the collar, asking if he looks like a liar and where the determination is in his eyes. He warns not to beg for mercy after mutating, and if he sees any sign of a mutant in him, he'll kill him on the spot. Kim says he'll keep that in mind while thinking the guy was just trying to scare a newbie, and that it's always the same as in real life, wondering why there was an R-rank character there since that look was before awakening and they still looked normal. Another man approaches, asking Servo not to treat the rookie like that, since they already had few people, and that man had 5 years of experience in dungeon cleansing. Servo questions if he really looked like he'd be helpful, thinking it's strange that he hasn't mutated yet, but he walks away while saying he has exactly 4 days to cleanse this contaminated place. Junsu reflects that he was even more annoying here than in the game. However, the long-haired guy taps his shoulder and tells him not to worry, since the deer can be a bit harsh sometimes, but he's actually a nice guy. Kim finally admits that he understood. They arrive at gate covered in slime. Then they say it's disgusting, and they'll never get used to it. Deer shouts that he'll open the doors and tells everyone to get ready. He presses the access button. That's how they enter the contaminated mana zone. The leader yells for everyone to hold their positions. The traces of contaminated mana crawl through the basement. Those are low-level monsters, contaminated slimes. Junsu reflects that the basis of the mana purification process and monsters are the contaminated slimes, since even though they're weak in combat, the reason they're hard to deal with is that even hitting them with a shovel, the slime splits in two and flies off, because they don't die unless you hit their mana core. The group members shout for each other to find the mana core because they'll be contaminated if this keeps up. But Kim quickly runs toward one of the slimes, yelling for his teammate to back off a little, and so he gets ready to attack with the shovel, since he wouldn't take responsibility for the damage, and strikes the contaminated slime, hitting a golden piece inside. The slime begins to dissolve and the man shouts. Kim comments with a smile that this was perfect, because now he was just starting to warm up, rising up from the ground with aggressive moves. The warrior charges through all the contaminated slimes in his path, slicing them and finding their mana cores, repeating the process until there's none left. One of the group members wonders what that was, because he was defeating the slimes with a single strike, wanting to know how that was possible as Kim heads toward the giant slime. Kim thinks it was totally possible. 2 days before the incident, he was lying on the ground and wonders where he was, because there should have been something around there, but he notices something strange in front of him, picking up a coin and saying he found it. That's how he acquired the treasure hunter trait. Kim is happy and says that this was the most important trait for warrior Kim, and celebrates having found 501, while people in the plaza think he's weird. Before the dungeon, Kim learned important things and acquired traits. He throws up in a trash can, expelling all the impurities inside while screaming, and gains the contamination resistance trait. Kim comments that that one was tough, but acquiring traits here was just like in the game. He only needed to meet the right conditions, and he admires all the traits he earned through hard work. You could have a total of 6 traits and switch them out whenever you wanted. The treasure hunter ability lets you find an opponent's weak point, and thanks to that trait, he can locate the mana core, dissolving the giant contaminated slime, forming a skull as it dissolves. Deer yells for everyone to be careful not to get hit. Kim is covered in contaminated gunk and says it was all worth it, since this warrior Kim ability was incredible, giving him resistance to contaminated mana. A bus drives through the city. Kim reflects that even with the help of traits, working all day is exhausting. Hedgehog shows up and comments that thanks to the warrior, everyone was leaving earlier, and just seeing that was amazing. He asks if Kim is expecting to awaken like Deer did, and Kim says he just knows how to use a shovel, since he served in the military. His colleague says he really is amazing. Kim reflects that the mutation symptoms on that guy were getting worse, and it seemed like he had been exposed to a lot of contaminated mana. So he suggests the guy take the day off tomorrow since he didn't look well. But Hedgehog replies that he'd rather become a mutant than stay in debt. Kim thinks that makes sense since there aren't many reasons for someone to take this kind of job. He drives his shovel into the ground. 4 days later, Kim sighs because it was finally over. But it seemed like everyone was exhausted from this job. Someone throws up on the floor suddenly. Hedgehog drops to his knees, talking about his head. Kim just thinks that he told him not to push past his limit. But Deer walks over, saying that he looks ready for the next one. But it's like that because he's still too new, and says he never thought Kim would finish his contract, congratulating him for the good work. Kim jokes that he only managed it thanks to him, while thinking that actually, it was thanks to the traits he got as a cleaner, so the job will be way too easy from now on. And it seemed like he was used to it too, wondering if he really was an R rank, while Servo mumbled out of exhaustion. But then they hear a scream, and Kim turns around. Hedgehog starts getting consumed by contaminated energy. His friends ask if he's okay because of the spikes. Meanwhile, Servo rushes in, asking what the hell that was. Kim thinks it can't be happening. The team leader tells Hedgehog to hang in there because they're getting out of there. But he had already mutated, causing an explosion in the contaminated area. Kim thinks it's impossible. Hedgehog's body had already transformed. He became gigantic in front of the warrior. He had turned into a mutant. Hedgehog was now in his mutant form. He seemed to have lost all sanity, and if they tried to defeat him, everyone there would die. Since all the new traits Kim had gained were made for dungeon cleansing, they wouldn't help him now. No matter how much he thought about what to do, he kept coming back to the conclusion that it was impossible. Hedgehog prepares to attack. He throws Kim far away, slamming him onto the ground back first. Kim reflects that the power difference is too great, and at this rate, he could die. But then he obtains the trait Endurance. Kim realizes this is exactly what he needed. It's too soon to give up, and he asks himself how he's going to survive this monster. First, he needs to erase some traits. Strength will prove useful now, and Mana Heart will help control his mana, with Endurance reducing all damage taken. Mana Absorption lets him absorb mana, and Deep Breathing grants faster regeneration. And finally, the last piece, Corruption Resistance. Kim finally gets the basics ready for battle. Hedgehog charges at him again. Kim imbues his shovel with green energy, with the strength trait boosting his power tenfold. The warrior launches Hedgehog into the air with his strike. It was good, it was working, and he knew he could do it. Hedgehog crashes into a wall, but then suddenly curls into a ball. Kim gets startled by this. Hedgehog spins at him, using a rock to leap from the ground, preparing to hit Kim's head. The boy begs, for the love of God. As he's struck by Hedgehog, the creature pulls back, its claw dug into the ground, grinding its teeth at Kim, and the boy jumps off the ground with a leap, complaining that even with Endurance activated, it still hurts like hell. But if he stops now, he'll lose his life, so he has no choice but to keep attacking. One of Hedgehog's spikes bends, flying straight at Kim's face, and launching more at the warrior. Kim crashes to the ground, wounded, thinking he just had to hold on a bit longer. He just needed a little more, aiming to land a punch on Hedgehog, but blood flies again from behind him. Kim is completely torn up because of the spikes. Hedgehog rages once more, launching a spike that splits Kim's fingers apart. The boy screams, lying on the ground, saying that, just as expected, he can't beat Warrior Kim. Hedgehog slams the ground again. Playing Arcane Souls, Junsu had been surrounded in the game. He used to tell everyone to rush in, claiming he'd win with just Warrior Kim. And back when he played the game, it was all easy, since it only took a single click to hunt monsters. He never thought about how the character would feel. He would just put his characters through extreme situations under the excuse of efficient training. But now he knew everything, because he'd endured so much suffering just to obtain a mediocre trait, landing a hit on Hedgehog and throwing him far with that strike, because there was no better way. With the activated trait called Mutant Muscle, meant to win without paying any price, Hedgehog crashes to the ground on his back. Kim realizes the reason he attacked recklessly was because of the obtainable trait that comes when surpassing the limits of mana, heart, and strength, activating mutant muscle. And everything had led to this moment. Kim uses his mutated arm to block Hedgehog's blow, saying he doesn't feel pain anymore and dares Hedgehog to hit him again. But the creature covers its fist in spikes, striking Kim in the stomach with it. The boy wonders if Hedgehog hasn't even used his full strength yet. Now with his stomach completely corrupted, it begins to form something strange. Kim gains the trait Mutant Body, becoming gigantic as well. He thanks him, saying he's stronger now because of him. Hedgehog charges at the boy, and now that they're on the same level, the two clash with brute force. Deer watches from a distance and wonders what's going on because it's so loud. He sees Kim and Hedgehog trading blows equally. He's surprised by Warrior Kim's presence, wondering if he's a superhuman or something to be able to fight evenly against a mutant. Kim is thrown back, and so is Hedgehog. Both fall onto their backs on the ground. The warrior thinks it wasn't that easy, since his size had become similar to that monster's, but at this rate, he'd be at a disadvantage. But the creature gets up and roars, while Kim thinks he has no choice at this point, activating the contamination resistance trait. He says he has to believe in himself and tells himself to black out. Deer is shocked as he watches the scene. Kim's hand begins to deform. His face turns monstrous, unlike his normal appearance, becoming a mutant monster. Kim is ready to battle Hedgehog, but a circle forms above his head. He then releases a spell against the mutant, gradually erasing Hedgehog with the attack. He's thrown into a structure. Deer wonders what that was, and if Kim was a monster, because he became a mutant while fighting another one, and wants to know how that was possible. As Kim acquires the mutant trait, he asks what the hell that was, but decides he needs to get out of there. Kim's shadow blocks Deer's vision. Then he stretches his hand toward the leader. Deer just closes his eyes, but realizes nothing happened. Kim sighs a little, and Deer wonders how he turned back into a human. Then the warrior falls to the ground, breathing heavily, saying he did it. If he's holding the mutant form and mutant muscles, and deletes the corruption resistance trait, he'll receive the mutant trait, and it's a common belief that once you become a mutant, you can't return to normal. But he knew he could do it, because you can change traits as long as you can think rationally, even just a little. That's how he endured the transformation, and managed to switch mutant with corruption resistance. The stadium was completely destroyed. Kim was dizzy after the battle, and it felt like all his bones and muscles were shifting inside his body. He never wants to go through that again. However, he gets up right after. In Hedgehog's mouth is a purple sphere, and Kim grabs it with his hand. Having obtained a level 1 mana core, he thinks it was all worth it. He's grateful for getting a level 1 mana core, because this cleanup job was definitely profitable. While Deer asks if the guy is okay, since he became a mutant back there and wants to know what happened. Kim says it'll be annoying if weird rumors start about him, so he says he took a risk, betting he could return to normal, and got really lucky. Deer is surprised to hear it was luck, and says that was really strange. But Kim hands him some mana cores, saying they're heading back now and he wants to get some fresh air, while the others thank him for the level 0 mana cores. The warrior reflects that he saved their lives and even gave out a few mana cores, so they'll keep it a secret. Deer stays quiet, watching Kim, and in the Shinsu Force's office, he thanks Kim for going through such a hard time and says it must have been terrible. Kim confirms it was tough work in the end, but wonders why he's buttering him up. Shinsu comments that if he had said he was a superhuman, he would have given him a proper job instead of a clean one. The warrior thinks that he believed he was a superhuman. In Arcane Soul, a superhuman awakens a skill that allows them to wield powerful mana. And in a world where strength is authority, superhumans are nobility. It made sense that he thought that since you'd need to be a superhuman to defeat mutants, even though he only managed it because of his traits, and Shinsu says he should be paid for the cleanup. Kim says that'd be nice, thinking he'll let him believe he's a superhuman for now. The agency leader says he cleaned 5 areas, and they normally take 20% in fees from the 50 million won total. And when split among the team, that's 5 million. But this time, he's doing it a bit differently. He'll only take 5% in fees from Kim's portion and give him a bonus. Kim is happy to receive 12 million, and Shinsu comments that he's happy to work with him, while the guy thinks it's cool being a superhuman. Leaving the room, he wonders how he's going to spend all that money. He runs into a bald man who says the warrior seems to be in a good mood, because he must have gotten a good payment. Kim confirms, saying they worked well, and reflects that this was one of the people he worked with last time. The man then mentions the reason he's there. It's to ask for a favor. His wife is sick, and he wonders if the warrior could lend him some money. He apologizes for asking this kind of favor, since they only worked together once, and Kim reflects that helping others in this world is a bad idea, because they could betray you at any moment, and it's hard enough just to survive. Kim grabs the man's hand and tells him not to do that. He's older than him after all, and even if it's not much, he should use this, handing him level 0 mana cores because he feels bad ignoring him. Later that night, in a dark alley, the man shouts that Kim was an idiot since he only pretended to be a poor old man and ended up getting all that stuff. Servo wonders if he's new to this kind of thing, and the man bets that if he'd mentioned a sick child, Kim would have given even more. Still, it pissed him off that they were paying more to him than to actual workers, since Kim gave him money along with some of his own share to that fake superhuman. Servo sighs, saying he's not even a real superhuman, and that it's a good time to teach him a lesson. The old man asks if he has a good idea, and the leader asks if he doesn't see it already, as an evil smile forms on his face. Because that idiot must have some weird kind of ability. He says they already know his secret, and they're going to teach him a lesson, squeezing out all of his level 0 cores, because they're going to show him just how terrifying this world can be. In a massive luxurious building, Kim comments that money is definitely a great thing, and he never thought he'd live to see the day he'd get a massage in a place like that. This game was better than real life, but the master presses on his arm. Kim reflects that he spent 3 full days resting in the hotel, but still feels pain, and from now on, he'll have to think twice before using mutant mode. Changing traits isn't as omnipotent as he thought, and his body changes depending on the traits he uses, and the severity of side effects increases the more his body changes. The problem is figuring out how to survive while limiting trait usage. He notices something strange through the window, wondering if it's the Iron Fist gang, since they're still walking around with that arrogant attitude. Arcane Seoul is ruled by local gangs, not by law. It makes sense, considering how many monsters are out there and how people rely on superhumans. And while he at least survived the first phase, it would be foolish to rely only on traits in a world this dangerous. So he puts a smile on his face, saying everything comes down to items. He heads to the item shop in Seoul. A woman asks if he's there to sell something, and he confirms he's got some monster byproducts. She looks down and says she should warn him first. They don't buy level 0 cores. Kim says he already knew that, and that he wants to sell something else, leaving the girl surprised when she sees the core. She asks if it's a level 2 mana core, and Kim confirms, asking her to take a look. He thinks it's nice seeing her surprised, and that the effort he put in at the hotel room paid off. He fused everything he had, and thank God he managed to create a level 2 mana core. Its price changes depending on the level, so if you want to sell it at the highest value, this is how it has to be. The girl pays him 4.77 million won for the core, and Kim thanks her, asking if by chance they sell weapons or armor there, and the woman confirms, asking him to follow her. Kim walks through the storage door, smiling as he enters, saying it looks like they have everything there, while thinking they're all basic items he used in the game. The girl tells him to make himself at home, and Kim reflects that it's time for him to gear up, stuffing several weapons into his backpack and walking out into the street saying that now, it finally feels like he's playing Arcane Seoul. A female voice politely stops Kim, asking if he's a mercenary, because she needs help. Kim says no and tells her to look for someone else, but the girl hands him money and says she's in Seoul on a business trip, but the Iron Fist gang is terrifying, wanting to know if he could escort her to her apartment, and Kim reflects that 500,000 for a bodyguard sounds like a daily quest, so maybe he should accept it. Touching her shoulder, he says he can't just ignore a woman in danger, pointing forward and asking if they should go already. They walk up a back alley on the outskirts. The girl says they're almost there. Kim reflects that the place feels really strange, since there aren't even ants on the ground or a single person around. The girl enters a narrow alley and says it's down that street. Worried, Kim turns his face to look, seeing the girl in the darkness, saying they're almost there. The warrior comments that it's too dark, and that he can't see very well. He unexpectedly acquires the night vision trait. He notices a weapon in the dark. The girl is ready to shoot him, and says the mercenary was more cautious than she expected. Kim wonders why she has a gun, and if this woman had planned an ambush for him. But Deer stops him from escaping, asking where his junior was trying to run off to, and says it's good to see him again in a situation like this. Kim questions what he did to deserve this. Deer says he didn't do anything, but he was dumb enough, and there's no other reason. Kim tries to run in the opposite direction, and the leader asks how he starts a conversation, and then runs off like that, telling them to shoot at the warrior. The bullet hits Kim in the back. He falls down a staircase. Deer complains that she was supposed to shoot his legs, not his back. The girl says it was better than letting him escape, and the leader assumes he lost his life. He had turned back into a human after becoming a mutant, and he was sure some mage would buy the corpse. A companion says he'll take the bag and equipment for now. Deer says it can't be helped and they'll take care of that first. But the body was no longer there, and he wonders where it went. A skylight shatters above them, striking one of Deer's partners in the neck. They ask what the hell that was, and Deer wants to know if Kim is still alive. The guy tells him to bet on it, because he wasn't going to lose his life to someone who repays kindness with betrayal. He had left the armor shop already wearing a bulletproof vest, and thanks to that, he gained the trait he needed, called plain dead. Deer yells that Kim broke the streetlight and now he can't see anything. But Kim was already behind him and asks if he was looking for him, because he saved his life and now he's going to take it. Insulting the leader of the group, he punches the man in the face, throwing him to the ground. Deer tries to get up but ends up sitting on the floor. He tries to kick Kim, but the guy just dodges, saying that Deer should have been grateful for being saved, and taking the life of your savior isn't the right thing to do, then punches him in the face again. Kim gets ready to stomp on his face, but the girl fires a shot before that can happen, asking if Deer is okay. Kim looks at his wounded arm and thinks he was too careless, because in Arcane Soul, the scariest things aren't the monsters or mutants, but the people. He was naive and trusted people too easily, and he won't make that mistake again, drawing a gun. He shoots the girl's hand, knocking her weapon far away, hitting the shoulder of another group member, and says it's already over. Kim fires again into the wall, saying he should take Deer's life just as a precaution, and the man tries to kick him. The warrior didn't expect the move, so he barely dodges and loses possession of his gun. Deer's legs finally transformed. He just underwent a superhuman awakening at that moment, and they did a terrible job balancing this game. Superhuman awakening is something all playable characters are capable of. It's considered a basic progression system in the game. According to the world within Arcane Soul, a level 1 superhuman is strong enough to threaten a civilian carrying a rifle. In other words, he has to deal with a superhuman using nothing but his body. Deer slips out of Kim's line of sight, and the guy wonders where he went. The awakened man was using his skills. Deer's abilities are stereoscopic movement and kick. This stereoscopic movement power allows the user to take advantage of the incredible elasticity of his leg to move freely. Kim notices that he used his stereoscopic movement to scale the building wall. Servo shouts that he's going to send the warrior to hell, and Kim needs to dodge it. The warrior rolls away, trying to evade the strike. Then the awakened one asks how he managed to dodge it. Emerging from the ground again, heading toward the boy, he shouts that he won't escape this time. With a smile on his face, Kim says he has no intention of dodging, using an expandable bait gun to block the leg, and calls him an animal, thinking that purchase was a good idea. A few hours earlier in the armory, he wondered if buying a weapon was worth it. But since Warrior Kim is a warrior class character, even if he got stronger, there's a limit to how well he can handle a weapon, and just in case, he decides to buy a weapon for the warrior class as well, picking up the baton in his hand. Each character has weapons and traits that are more effective for their class. That's why, to defeat Servo, he extends the baton again, because he needs to use a close-range weapon and the proper traits for a warrior. Kim attacks vertically, landing a blow on Servo's shoulder, and obtains the attack trait. His first class-specific trait was the warrior class trait, attack, and now he charges forward, using a downward slash, an upward strike, and a thrust, finally finishing his combo with a horizontal slash. Servo looks to the side as he dodges, trying a high kick aimed at Kim's head. Kim wonders how to dodge this opening, since he can't stop now after coming this far. So even if he breaks a bone, he'll keep attacking, striking Servo's thigh. The kick hits Kim's forearm, and the baton injures the awakened one's thigh. An aura surrounds the weapon once again, as the warrior acquires the trait known as Combo, the best trait for the warrior class in the early stages, using attack and combo to strike Servo. The awakened one begs him to stop, but Kim lands the final blow on his stomach, leaving Servo unconscious on the ground. As the rain falls, Kim gives thanks for defeating the awakened Servo. His hand turns a little red. He wonders what that strange sensation is, because his entire body aches, and even so, something is overflowing inside him. Wondering what it could be, an explosion erupts at the location. The day he discovered the harsh truth of Arcane Soul, awakening as a superhuman and level 1 warrior Kim, he opens his hand surrounded by aura, closes it, and thinks that he's now a superhuman. Then Kim happily shouts about his new condition, because he'll now start receiving offers for high-paying mercenary jobs and even loans with low interest. A man with a cigar asks if he did it. Kim turns around to see a large man standing before him. This is Iron Fist Kim, the second basic character given in Arcane Soul after Warrior Kim, a reinforced soldier with a prosthetic arm who specializes in firearms and precision shots. But the problem is, he's the leader of the Iron Fist gang. Kim says he fought inside their territory and probably stirred up trouble. The soldier asks if, by any chance, he even knew where he was before causing the mess, and the boy replies that he was attacked and couldn't afford to die there. The gang leader cocks his gun and asks if they think they're scarier than the Iron Fist gang. Kim realizes that if he keeps fighting, he'll lose his life for nothing. But the soldier places the gun to his chest and tells him he made a terrible choice, because he's about to find out what happens when you mess up their turf. Kim glares at him fiercely, asking if that's so, and says he overlooked one thing, grabbing the weapon in his hand, and stating that he's not the type to lose his life so easily. Pulling the trigger, the soldier reflects that he fired the gun himself. Kim wonders what that was as he stands up, because it only tickled, and now he's healing thanks to the regeneration trait. The soldier jokes that he's got quite an interesting ability. Kim asks if it's the evolved version of the wound recovery trait, known as regeneration, a trait obtainable once you become a superhuman. And it'll all be over once they underestimate him, because he's going with a bluffing tactic, saying he didn't survive out of luck, and no matter who it is, if they mess with Warrior Kim, they better be ready. The soldier repeats his name and says he liked his courage, saying he'll let it go this time, but that he owes him now. He taps Kim on the shoulder and tells him to understand what that means. The warrior says he'll remember that and wonders if the soldier recognized him. Then the gang leader extends his hand, asking to work together next time. Kim reflects that Iron Fist isn't the type to lie, and building a connection here wouldn't be a bad move, saying that it sounds like a good decision. He shakes the man's iron hand, saying they'll meet again. At the Jamsel Tower of Superhumans, Kim says he had no idea it would be like this when he saw the game, but it was a spectacle, and completely different from his hometown. A girl thanks him for visiting the Superhuman Tower, asking if she can help, while Kim finds her beautiful, wondering if she's an NPC, while the girl says that if he's there for certification, he should go to the machine over there to measure his mana and trait circuit, and Kim thanks her, thinking that he didn't even ask, and yet she guided him, because that's how much he looks like a newbie, and once he gets that certificate, he'll finally start his real life. Something strange happens and pulls Kim, as people bring their hands together and say that the saint is there. Kim thinks this was a unique airship, with a rune taking over the floor of the building. That was the order of the Old Father, and he wonders why there's a boss here, because he's still in the tutorial timeline, and she's a saint instead of a boss, while people pray to her. As the story progresses, it's revealed that the Order is actually a cult disguised as a religion, and they begin attacking civilians indiscriminately. People wonder if the saint is there for a mana test, because she probably wants to renew her level. An aura surrounds the saint. As she smiles up at the sky, Kim says it looked like a noisy mana scan. The circuits turn yellow. The aura begins to fade. Looking toward the sky, the saint continues to smile. The citizens pray anxiously. The saint is in the priest class, with mana level 8 and a 6-layer circuit. Whispers continue about the saint's traits and their 6 abilities, while Kim reflects that this wasn't the time to be hoping for things. A level 8 superhuman can be compared to an aircraft carrier squadron, basically a walking national-level superpower with enough strength to wipe out Seoul in the future. But even if he said that now, they'd think he was crazy and throw stones at him. For now, he'll measure his mana, and drawing too much attention as a newbie with 6 abilities wouldn't be ideal, so he'll lower it to 3. The saint suddenly looks to the side. Her subordinates ask what's wrong, and she says Kim is unusual, approaching him and saying that he has a rather intriguing ability. Kim is startled and backs away from the saint, asking what the boss just said, because she just sensed that he switched his traits. Kim had equipped abilities, and a soldier asks why the saint would even speak to him. He looks like a regular human. The saint grabs Kim's hand, asking if she can know his name, and the guy introduces himself as Warrior Kim, thinking that the only reason a priestess would ask someone's name in Arcane Seoul. The saint says she's representing the order of the Old Father to baptize him, because the Old Father, Lord of the Black Gold Throne, always desires rare powers like his, asking him to submit and find peace in this hellish world. People around say they're jealous that he's being baptized by the Old Father's first daughter personally. Kim curses the whole situation, because if he's baptized and receives the baptism trait, he'll have no choice but to become a paladin of the Order. However, the Order of the Old Father loses the war against South Korea to major figures of Arcane Seoul. He strengthens his grip, pulling away from the saint as he thinks he doesn't want to be forced into betting everything on a cause doomed to be wiped out. The citizens continue circling. Kim says he refuses to be baptized, leaving the saint stunned, saying she must have misheard him. The warrior denies it because he's serious. The saint says he is free to serve or to refuse to serve. However, the Old Father already set his eyes on him. She places her hand on his shoulder and asks him not to forget that a sacred seed has already taken root inside him. And if you can't overcome this small seed, your fragile free will have no meaning at all. Kim was burning while kneeling. The residents wondered how a newbie dared to refuse a baptism and felt sorry for him. Kim was suffering from divine fever, where he'd endure infinite pain as punishment, and he thought he was prepared for it, but it still hurt like he was on fire. Divine fever is one of the strongest debuffs in Arcane Seoul, and by causing endless burning pain, it prevents a person from living their life, and the only way out is through baptism. He refused it because he thought about the future, but it seemed like he was about to lose his life right there. His eyes rolling back as he begins to lose consciousness. Water is splashed onto his face. Kim wonders who it was. It was the girl who had guided him earlier, asking if he was okay. No one helps anyone during divine fever because of fear the negativity might spread to them, but he was grateful. So he decides to endure just a little longer. Kim acquires the Divine Endurance trait, extinguishing the flames little by little, thinking he didn't refuse the baptism without considering the consequences. Aura expands in his imagination. The first condition is acquiring Divine Endurance, and now he needs to gather more mana inside him, equipping this trait onto his body. The girl continues to pour water on him. Kim reflects that it feels like the water of life in this painful moment, and he needs to focus on this contrasting sensation. Fire and water concentrate at his core, the burning pain and cold reason using the mana within him to extinguish the flame, releasing all the energy from the divine fever. A strong wind blows the guide away. Kim acquires the Mana Barrier trait and thinks that he obtained the trait a defensive warrior should have, called Mana Barrier. The guide asks if he's okay, and Kim nods, saying it's all thanks to her. The residents wonder how he overcame divine fever without being baptized. Kim reflects that he didn't fully overcome it. It was just a temporary measure using the barrier, but at least he was free from the burning pain. The black flame was kind of cool, saying it's time to measure his mana. The bar begins to charge, and the scan is completed, revealing Warrior Kim with mana level 1 and a 6-layer circuit. People comment that he's a super rookie, and that's why the Saint wanted him, but the warrior thinks he drew too much attention, and his goal was to get strong quietly. The guide congratulates him, saying she's never seen anyone with a 6-layer circuit from the beginning, and asks if he'd like to go issue his superhuman license. Still at the superhuman tower, the girl hands him the license, congratulating him for officially becoming a certified superhuman. Kim reflects that he worked hard to achieve this. The girl offers to explain all the level 1 special privileges, but the warrior declines. He already knows everything. With reduced fees, the right to carry weapons, and as he levels up, he'll gain exemption from taxes, immunity from imprisonment, and access to all transport and benefits. The guide comments that he knows quite a lot, while Kim says he's a PhD in superhumanology, and that he doesn't like to waste too much time, asking if there's a way to leave quietly without the crowd outside. The girl agrees, saying she already prepared something. Kim is surprised by her reaction, as she tells him not to worry and to follow her. The warrior thanks her for taking such good care of him, even giving him a stealth cloak and showing a secret passage, and the guide says it's no problem to help others. Kim acquires the stealth trait and thinks he got a skill for free. The guide points ahead and says he can exit that way. She can only bring him this far due to the rules. The warrior thanks her, saying it's more than enough, and the girl says it's no trouble. Kim reflects that he didn't know someone so kind could exist in Arcane Soul. She's beautiful too, and once he's strong, they'll return the favor. Wondering what her name is since he has the business card, Kim is completely shocked when he reads the name, because it says Babysitter. She's one of the 3 strongest characters in the game, a berserker who always had a terrifying appearance. He thought it was strange that her face seemed familiar, someone who always had such a fearsome look in the game, so much that he couldn't even imagine it. To think Babysitter was someone so kind, he wants to know what the hell happened to her. Kim slices through the last slime of his mission. He thinks that being a superhuman is awful. He had been clearing out this monster cave non-stop for a week and was completely exhausted. Sitting down on the floor, he says he finally finished the cave, and he's already this tired because the efficiency was terrible. All of it was because he had to focus his traits on maintaining the mana barrier. If he could customize them just to clean the cave, he would have finished hours ago, but he couldn't do any other work because of that cursed debuff. So he needs a potion called Nectar to eliminate the divine fever. But it's so expensive that this cleaning job won't cover the cost. Kim's phone vibrates in his pocket. He wonders how many times Director Choi is going to call. It's so annoying, and says he's had enough of him. But he gives up on ending the call since he just got a great idea. He heads to the Shiansu agency. The director says that someone who overcame the divine fever without being baptized, and the man who started with a 6-layer circuit, is an honor to meet. Kim agrees, saying things just ended up that way. They ask if he found the job he requested, and Choi complains, because it's really difficult to do that, as Nectar is a medicine that can only be acquired through quests from level 5 superhumans or higher. Kim complains that if he can't get it, he'll just leave, but the director begs him not to do that because it involves his contract, and it's clear he'll manage. While reflecting, since it's Director Choi, he knew he'd find a quest with Nectar as a reward, and asks what the mission is about. The director places a tablet on the table and asks if he's heard of Number 1 Security. Kim says it's the first time he's heard of them, and that it sounds like a security company. Choi explains it's a private military company and one of the biggest in the industry, where the president and vice president are a couple, both from traditional martial arts families. The warrior comments that for a rich family to post a request like this, it must be something serious. Choi responds that their son is the issue. He's already over 20 but still hasn't awakened as a superhuman. Kim asks if that's even possible when both parents are martial artists, and the director explains that he's accumulated level 8 mana, but still hasn't awakened. The director explains that their condition is that it has to be a level 1 or higher warrior type superhuman, so it should be a perfect fit for Kim. The warrior smiles, saying he'll go take a look then. At a very bright and beautiful mansion, Choi swings his legs, saying the president and vice president are usually very busy and not the type to run late. Kim reflects that it's clearly a very expensive house, but a woman enters and apologizes for keeping them waiting so long, since they're the clients, Seo Jungju and Lee Miri. Choi bows, saying it was nothing and thanking them for their time. Kim does the same, thinking they must be at least level 6 superhumans, because both have a considerable amount of mana. Jungju complains that you can tell he's weak just by looking at him, and Miri asks him not to speak like that, saying her husband should go back to his room. The man sits down grumbling, but the woman asks both of them to take a seat as well, because since they came all this way, they must be considering accepting the request. Kim says he'd first like to check on her son's condition and see if there's any specific reason preventing his awakening. Jungju slams his hand on the table, asking if he really thought he'd tell something like that to a rookie. Miri asks him not to act that way since he's on edge because it's about their son. And it's not something they can tell an outsider. If he accepts the request, they'll call their son and explain the situation, because she's sure he must be really in need of nectar. Kim reflects that there's a problem with their son that must be kept confidential, and they know exactly what he needs, so he's more and more convinced, saying he'll accept the request and they should call their son. The door to the room opens. The boy introduces himself as Seo Woojin. Kim stands and says it's a pleasure to meet him, thinking he can't sense any mana coming from him. The warrior notices something different below, saying that he has some pretty cool gloves, and the boy agrees, saying they're more than he deserves, so he wears them gratefully. Kim comments that he figured as much, since he'd need a very strong mana seal, surprising the family. The warrior smiles, saying he was certain the moment he saw the gloves, and even though it's a critical secret of a noble family, they chose to request a level 1 warrior-type superhuman, and he used the nectar as bait to bring him there, because Mr. Woojin had also been baptized by the order of the old priest, and the reason he wasn't able to awaken was because he rejected the baptism and sealed his mana to avoid divine fever. Since he couldn't make that public, he had been suffering. He must have heard the rumor about a level 1 superhuman who overcame divine fever, so he decided to seek him out. Woojin is completely stunned by his insight, saying it's amazing, he doesn't need to explain anything else, and almost thought Kim was the protagonist of a detective series. Kim just comments that it's a matter of reading, while reflecting that there's nothing to fear when you know the future. The moment he saw the photo, he already understood, because in the future, Seo Woojin becomes the paladin of the vanguard of the Order of the Old Priest. He refused baptism and held on, but his parents lost their powers, and then he gave in and joined the Order of the Old Priest. Jungju approaches, calling Kim sir, and asks if there's any way for his Woojin to escape baptism. The warrior reflects that he was super arrogant a moment ago, and now he's acting all polite, so he confirms that there's a solution. He thinks about how he played Arcane Soul for 10,000 hours and obviously knows how to escape, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder and saying he understands the pain because he suffered too. So he should trust him because he'll get him out of this. Woojin starts crying, calling Kim sir. The warrior thinks he doesn't care she's a saint. She dared to try baptizing him into such a disgusting cult, and now his future subordinate was at his side. Kim pulls away from the hug with a smile, saying that before starting treatment, he'd like to add a condition, and his parents ask about it. But the mother says she understands since it's no longer just about awakening, but about overcoming divine fever, and if he can cure Woojin, Kim requests as an additional condition, he'd like them to teach him the mountain-crushing swordsmanship. The warrior keeps smiling, while Director Choi looks uneasy. Miri approaches the boy, asking if he fully understands what he just said. Kim is startled by her aura, wondering what that murderous intent is, because the vice president was way scarier than the president right now, and he gets that she'd be angry, but mountain-crushing swordsmanship. People may doubt the decision to learn swordsmanship in the information era of the 21st century, but power is authority, slicing through a tank with just a sword, as superhuman swordsmanship can easily destroy an entire tank. High-level martial artists are replaced by squadrons of fighter jets worth trillions of won. If a level 1 superhuman learns and continuously trains in mountain-crushing swordsmanship, they can reach level 4 effortlessly. It's basically cheating. He remembers that only elites are allowed to learn that swordsmanship, wondering if he crossed the line, and Kim agrees, but only if he completes the mission. Woojin calls out to his mother, causing her murderous intent to fade. She finally accepts that it's okay, because if he succeeds, she'll give him a memory chip containing mountain-crushing swordsmanship along with the nectar, leaving Kim stunned. He thanks her, thinking he really believed Miri was going to kill him, and now he got the sword technique too. Miri says, however, if he fails, she and her husband will be disappointed and angry. Kim assures her that won't happen, and says it's better to start as soon as possible. They head to a room with a mana focus circle, and 200 intermediate-grade mana potions. Miri says she prepared everything he asked for, and Kim agrees it should be enough, and he prefers to be alone with the patient during the treatment. The woman apologizes for what happened earlier, because her Woojin was baptized by force before entering school and never had the chance to make friends, let alone go on a family picnic. He had to suffer, unable to leave his room under any circumstances. It seems they became overly sensitive about the cause of the situation, and from now on she will leave everything completely in his hands. Kim reflects that everyone in their family had to suffer because of the saint's trap. Woojin thanks his mother, saying he's okay, and the warrior thinks that in the game, he ends up turning against his family and becomes cold in the future. He kinda feels bad for them, so he reassures the lady, saying he'll make it work no matter what. Alone, Kim says they're going to start now, and Woojin asks what he has to do. The warrior asks why he's shaking and tells him to calm down, but the boy assumes he's going to torture him, using injections and shocks to awaken his power. Kim asks what kind of treatment they've done to him so far, and the boy thinks that the general treatment to cure divine fever is to drink nectar after awakening. But Woojin has too much mana in his body, and the fever was severe for him. But the warrior kneels and says there's no need to worry because everything seen during training must be kept secret, and the boy promises. So they begin, and first Kim has to expand the mana barrier to its absolute limit. Then the barrier starts to weaken and the warrior complains about the heat. But he uncaps the potions in his hand. He drinks while Woojin tries to call for help. Kim simply tosses the potions behind him, opening 2 more for himself to drink, thinking it was a horrible deal. Already having drunk several vials, he obtains the trait Medicine Addiction, where received damage and mana consumption increase, but the effects of medicines are abnormally enhanced, and he thinks about his focus on mana. Using Area Darkness, which creates a shield over a designated area, Kim wipes his mouth, saying the divine fever has been completely pushed out of the barrier. Woojin yells that it's too much, and the warrior says it's way too early to celebrate, because he'll have to remove his mana sealing glove and stick his hand outside the barrier, since he's going to have to grab his hand. Woojin says the 2 divine fevers will start a resonance reaction. Kim steps out of the designated barrier and says his fever will be manageable since it's within the barrier, and not to ask why, just follow his orders. Woojin thinks this is the first time he's removing the glove, slowly pulling it off his hand. That's when the resonance begins. Kim wonders how much mana he has inside his body, and says it's terrifying, but he has to grab his hand, sensing something frightening in his divine fever. Kim thinks it hurts a lot, more than when the saint baptized him. It felt like his bones were being shattered, and he has to maintain focus to endure the pain, and thinks it doesn't matter if it's the saint or the divine fever. Then he jumps toward the barrier, falling on top of Woojin. Kim is completely out of breath, holding Woojin's wrist, and says it was a success. He's acquired the damage absorption trait, where the user can absorb damage from others. Woojin mentions that he removed the glove, and it was tolerable. Kim smiles because that's why they had to go through all of that. Beyond the barrier, he used damage absorption to take part of Woojin's divine fever, meaning Woojin's fever was weakened. Then he says this is the final stage as he draws his sword, asking Woojin not to stop and to keep attacking until he awakens. The boy agrees because it's time to use the swordsmanship he trained with all his life. Then he assumes a different stance, attacking Kim's arms. He moves behind the warrior, saying he broke an iron gauntlet with a wooden sword and acquired the trait Protect. But even with that trait, he'll be in critical condition if he takes another hit like that. And it's absurd to think Woojin hasn't even awakened yet. The monster's sword approaches, and Kim wonders what kind of swordsmanship she taught that boy, because he's having trouble dodging his strikes. He collapses to his knees on the ground, gaining a trait called Evasion. Kim makes a decision because he's about to awaken. Woojin's mana is gathering. Kim wonders how the sword and Seo are glowing the same color. He's at SSR rank, being called one with the sword. Kim thinks he's reached a state where the sword becomes a person. It's an insanely overpowered trait for a warrior class. But this guy is really strange, because he's in a complete trance. Kim would lose his life if he got hit. First, he has to use every defensive trait possible, and focus the barriers on both his arms. With the help of the mana focus circle in this room, he combines 2 skills to block the attack, and is thrown far away because of it. A shield forms on the ground. Kim acquires the Mana Shield trait, combining the traits Mana Barrier and Protect to create the Mana Shield. Woojin being one with the sword almost cost him his life, and the boy lets out a faint groan. Kim is shocked by this. Seo's eyes return to normal, and he collapses to the side on the floor. Kim asks how he dared to lose consciousness so peacefully after nearly taking his life, noticing the boy was nearly asleep on the floor, and he had lost control a bit after awakening. In the game, Si Woojin was a powerful SSR-ranked character, but since he awakened as a warrior instead of a paladin, he gained sword-related abilities as his starting trait. Maybe he had created a monstrous warrior by awakening Si Woojin as a warrior instead of a paladin, and he doesn't know how that will affect the story in the future. But he was born into a golden cradle, has immense strength, and now owes him a favor, so it's not bad at all. Miri says her son really overcame divine fever, so both parents thank him, calling him sir. Kim says it was nothing and that he said he'd get it done. Choi flatters his master too. Woojin was still very drowsy. The woman says it's been a long time since they saw him sleep so deeply, and she doesn't even know how to repay that debt. Jeonju smiles along with his wife, saying that in addition to the promised nectar and the memory chip with the swordsmanship, they'll provide a success bonus. And Kim tries to stay humble. They both insist he accept the 1 billion won, saying it's little compared to what he did for their son. Kim accepts, since refusing it would only hurt their feelings again. Choi jokes in the car that the warrior basically won the lottery. The warrior says he knows. They're gorgeous. While driving, the director asks if he's going to drink the nectar now, and Kim agrees, saying he plans to take a break from dungeons for a while. Choi says that's understandable. He doesn't want to attract the attention of the Order of the Old Priest, or of those who've heard about his rewards, but it's a shame because if he refined the nectar and drank it afterward, his mana would increase a lot. Kim agrees with his words, thinking that if he refines it and drinks later, it could significantly raise his superhuman level instead of having to spend resources to cure divine fever. Arriving at a hotel building, Choi calls out to the warrior and says he'll find the necessary equipment to refine the nectar, and he should consider drinking it later. Kim smiles and thanks him, saying he'll think about it. He uncorks the nectar, saying he's going to drink it right now, since he learned how cruel the world of Arcane Seoul can be during the Servo incident, and he can't guarantee the director won't betray him. With the traits of medicine addiction, mana absorption, and potion dependency, he can maximize the nectar's effects anyway. Throwing the bottle to the floor, Kim begins to feel pain, saying it feels like every muscle fiber is being broken down and rebuilt, and an incredible amount of mana is being stored inside him. Being completely tormented by the potion, Kim suddenly opens his eye, lighting up the entire building with the explosion. He reaches superhuman warrior level 2, and by curing divine fever with the nectar, he acquired Black Flame and gained one of the best grade traits in the entire game. Black Flame was added to his skill list, along with mountain-crushing swordsmanship, and he feels relieved. He'll be able to focus on training those skills without issue. His phone starts vibrating. He wonders why Director Choi is messaging him out of nowhere, but decides to do nothing and continue training. However, the calls keep coming more frequently. Kim asks why the rush. The warrior had received a string of messages telling him to grow stronger and not to care about criticism. So he wonders what this nonsense is, since he doesn't usually text like that. But he notices the message says, "From the mountains," and it's not a name, there are capital letters. Reading about running from the gang, Kim realizes he hid a message within the text. The Dagger Gang is a group that opposes the Iron Fist Gang, and if the director had wanted to betray him, he would have called like always to stall, but considering he sent that message, it means he was caught first. It seems the information was leaked while he was trying to prepare the equipment. Kim becomes completely uneasy about it, saying he'll ignore it for now. He already got the nectar he wanted, and in Arcane Seoul, everyone is responsible for their own lives. A scream is heard in the alley. A man says the gentleman was really stubborn, because even after an entire night, he still won't say where the rookie superhuman is. Choi says he signed a contract because he trusted him and will never talk, so it doesn't matter what they do. The man says he didn't want to resort to this, but now he has no choice. Grabbing an axe to attack him, asking which arm he wants to lose, right or left. And if he doesn't answer, it'll be the right one by default. An explosion goes off in that building. The man asks what the hell that was, as a subordinate calls his boss, and he asks what's going on outside. Injured, the henchman says there's a bastard out there. A sniper scope was locked onto the room because Kim was launching grenades toward the building, and says the Dagger Gang picked the wrong person to mess with. You can't just abandon someone who keeps their word in this cruel world of Arcane Seoul, saying it's all good now, because he's going to start the war, and launches a grenade shot. Blowing up the gang's area, he was armed with his sword. The gang members ask where the shot came from in order to find him. Kim says, as expected, they're scrambling out of the building like cockroaches, and even though it looks like a normal apartment complex, he knows it well, because this is the Dagger Gang's dungeon that he cleared until exhaustion. A complex dungeon made up of 6 different buildings. Since the Dagger Quest is one of the tutorial missions, he can finish it with his eyes closed now. So he gets ready to run, saying that from this point on, the veteran's going to complete the mission. The gang members look around, trying to spot Kim, asking if it could be the Iron Fist Gang attacking, since they're the only ones crazy enough to do this, and they'll beat them to a pulp once they catch them. But then they hear a sound. One of them turns and asks what that was, deciding to check it out. Going behind a trash bin and asking what it was, seeing nothing there, until a hand grabs his face, slamming the gang member to the ground. Kim reflects that the guy couldn't recognize him, even while standing right in front of him, and there's no better combo than playing dead in stealth for infiltration. So while those idiot gangsters were wandering outside, he's going to enter the main building, sneaking in through the secret entrance to the base, and decides that, for now, he's avoided combat as much as possible to get inside. Since the Dagger Gang loves to place their hostages right next to the boss's room on the 5th floor, he's still got a long way to go. He moves stealthily to avoid being caught. But an alarm goes off, announcing that enemies have infiltrated the building, and all members must arm up and gather at the designated meeting point. Kim complains that they already found out. He heads to a door to infiltrate deeper. The gangsters talk about the minigun, while Kim targets their weapons and feet. They call for a counterattack while cursing at Kim. He tosses a grenade into the air, causing another explosion in the building. Kim says taking the long way isn't his style, and one grenade isn't enough. He fires off all his remaining grenades. Explosions erupt as he says it's great because they really enjoyed his little gift. The smoke in the room clears. Kim looks at the bodies on the floor, wondering if that's all of them. But there must be a survivor. He can't let his guard down, and one of the gangsters pulls a gun, shouting for him to go to hell, firing at Kim's face. But the guy just dodges, having unlocked the sensory trait. Now that he has the trait he needed for this dungeon, it's the gangster who's going to hell. So he punches him, saying he's heading up now that all the weaklings are dealt with. He climbs the stairs slowly, thinking he may have made it to the 4th floor without a problem. But the real danger starts now. There will be gang members waiting on the 4th floor, right before the 5th and the boss room. Sneaking along a wall to observe, Kim is startled by what he sees ahead, because there's no one there, not even in the betting room. He thought something was strange, and he needs to focus, acquiring the focus trait. Kim hopes he can hear something from the floor above, noticing a drone flying by, which drops a grenade to the ground, detonating a flashbang. Kim complains that it's just to blind him. An assassin approaches from behind, trying to stab him stealthily, and wounds his shoulder. The Dagger Gang's boss calls him a little rat and says he caught him, but Kim blocks with his shield and asks who he thinks he caught. The assassin backs off, asking how his dagger didn't pierce through. Backing away from Kim, the warrior asks if he's not the one acting like a rat, and who exactly he thinks he's calling that, reflecting that he didn't expect the boss to show up on the 4th floor, and that was dangerous, because this wasn't a game, but he managed to read the patterns. As the flash grenade exploded, Kim closed his eye, thinking that a flash is the usual pattern for a chain attack when entering a boss room, and he had to equip sensitive and focus before the boss appeared. The leader of the Dagger Gang was an assassin, and he had to rely on his 5 senses to feel where the attack would come from. The assassin complains that Kim blocked his ambush, and Kim tells him not to be so surprised, drawing his extendable baton, and saying he'll make him regret choosing him as a target. He charges at the assassin. He attempts a horizontal slash. The assassin comments that he's acting way too cool for someone so slow, throwing a dagger at Kim. The weapon gets closer and closer to the warrior, but it hits and deflects the dagger away. He reflects that, as expected of an assassin, he was fast, and he only survived thanks to his sensitive and focused traits. There was poison magic imbued in that guy's dagger, and even the slightest touch would send Kim straight to his grave. The longer the fight dragged, the worse it'd get. The assassin says he was lucky, and if he surrenders now, he'll only take one of his arms. Kim tells him to stop talking crap and come at him. That gang leader laughs, saying he can tell he's a shooter just by how poorly he holds the sword, and he's got a big one too. The warrior reflects that he was assuming his class was a reinforced soldier just because he used firearms. Then the assassin charges, saying he'll tear him apart and kill him in the most painful way possible. Kim says he only has one chance, raising his katana, and now the enemy had his guard down. The assassin says he's too slow. Kim turns his face, breathing in, while spinning the direction of the katana, executing a reverse slash toward the assassin, who didn't expect a shooter to use a combo attack, so he crouches and blocks the strike with his dagger. Kim apologizes to him, but once he switches his traits, he's no longer a shooter. He's now a classic warrior armed only with swordsmanship, using the first style of mountain-crushing swordsmanship, landing a slash on the man's shoulder with the mountain smash technique. The assassin screams, spitting blood. He falls to the floor while Kim breathes heavily, saying that the moment he dropped his guard, he'd lose. The assassin prepares to strike again, because it wasn't over yet. Kim asks if he was playing his final card. Blood splatters across the apartment windows. The assassin collapses on the floor. Kim has the sword stuck in his abdomen. The warrior says he dropped his guard at the end, and the poison was already circulating through his body, so he needs to switch his traits. Switching to regeneration abilities and healing the part of his belly, Kim gets up, complaining that he can still take it, but it hurts a lot. The gangsters receive orders to head up, since there's an intruder in the building. So Kim says there's no time to waste. He has to get out of the building as fast as possible. In the Dagger Gang's 4th General's room on the 5th floor, Director Choi falls from his chair, thinking he has to get out of there quickly. But someone appears in front of him. Kim asks how he ended up getting caught, since he was pretty tough, and Choi asks if he came to rescue him. The warrior says they should get out first, because others are on their way, and the director agrees. He tries to stand without assistance. Kim curses the gangsters for what they did to him, telling him to get on his back. Choi hesitates, but the warrior says they're in a hurry to get somewhere safe. He thinks that even after suffering so brutally, the director still remained loyal, and while Arcane Seoul seemed like a hellish world, he can still be surprised by touching moments like this. So they head to Shinsu's agency, drinking several healing potions. Kim acquires the poison resistance trait and says that drinking the potions flushed the poison from his system. Choi shows up with more cans and tells him to feel free to drink them all, but Kim declines, saying he's already had enough. The director says there's no way to apologize enough because the information was leaked while he was preparing the nectar, and he shouldn't have trusted his staff. Kim agrees since he already drank the nectar anyway, leaving the director stunned, but the boy says that if he hadn't drunk it, he wouldn't have been able to save him. Choi complains because he had to drink such a precious nectar to save him, and Kim reflects that it wasn't his fault, but he would let him think whatever he wanted. A knock is heard at the agency's door. The director wonders if the Dagger Gang had already arrived. He asks what they should do, while Kim turns around and says they should welcome the guest, opening the door and being surprised, because it was the Iron Fist Gang and its leader, Kim of the Iron Fist. Kim welcomes the group. Iron Fist says it's absurd to think he wiped out the Dagger Gang, as he knew Kim wasn't just any guy, and asks why he called them there. Kim thinks it's because it's his turn to receive the reward for the difficult mission. The Iron Fist Gang and the Dagger Gang are rivals fighting for power over the Silum area. In the game, the tutorial asks the player to eliminate the Dagger Gang to help Iron Fist. By destroying the Dagger Gang, the Iron Fist offers many rewards. He then asks if Kim is planning to create an organization or something like that, and Kim denies it, saying the reason he was there today was to say he could keep the Dagger Gang's territory, because he prefers to be alone and has no intention of entering the underworld, so this was the best way to repay his debt from before. Iron Fist says it's an offer where he loses nothing, and it sounds a bit too much for just a debt. Kim jokes that they're on the same page now, because now that he owns the Silum area, he should grant him a wish, and Iron Fist asks to hear it first. Kim reflects that it's something everyone likes to have. He wants a house for himself. Iron Fist repeats the request. Kim explains that he works alone in this harsh world and realized he needs one, complaining that his stomach was injured during the fight with the Dagger Gang. So the gang leader agrees since Kim got rid of their rival gang. The warrior praises how straightforward he is. Iron Fist Kim asks what kind of house he prefers between a luxury mansion and an apartment, but the guy declines, saying he needs a secluded house with guaranteed security and soundproofing, and also he needs a training facility in the basement. The gang leader repeats that, and says he has a house with those specs, while Kim crosses his fingers. The house was located on the outskirts of Silum, right at the top of Jeonnebon. Kim reflects that this is the exact house given to the player as their first base in Arcane Seoul. He relaxes at his table, and says this is what it's like to have a real home. And he loved how pure the air was there, and the view was perfect. Such a beautiful and magnificent house. Kim comments that when he first fell into Arcane Seoul, he had no idea what to do since the hospital bill was around 20 million won. But now he has a house that's closer to a palace. Not only that, he has the money from security number 1 and director Choi, enough to stay in the hospital for a whole year without worry. But here in Arcane Seoul, there's no time to enjoy success. As soon as the game's plot progresses, evil villains like the Saint of the Old Priest's Order will appear and destroy the city. Kim picks up his pickaxe, because now it's time to look for the real reason he chose this house, heading to the underground training facility, saying it should be somewhere around here, and now they're going to work. He strikes the stone wall. Everything collapses in front of him, leaving him surprised. He comments that it seems like his skill is working, and he might finish this faster than expected, digging downward as fast as he can. Kim complains that he didn't know when he played the game that the treasure was buried this deep, but there's no turning back now, and he was going to get out of there soon. A liquid begins to seep from the stone. Kim starts to drink that water, gradually regenerating with energy, and he loved that taste because he could feel his body healing in real time, and that's the effect of the mana spring, a spring full of mana. Even characters whose HP drop to 0 can recover quickly when soaked by the mana spring, and most debuffs disappear, showing its incredible therapeutic properties. The place where he could access such an amazing mana spring for free was none other than the Jeonnebon house and the first base provided by the gang. He had to go through a lot to get there, unlike the game where you could do it with a single click. He was so full of vitality that he could easily feel the effect. Grabbing one of his swords, he comments that the mana source has such incredible effects that it's perfect for training, because he can recover quickly if he runs out of stamina, and then go back to training. Now it was time for the first and only ultra efficiency training for free-to-play rankers. At nightfall at Kim's mansion, He thinks it had been 2 weeks since he locked himself in the training room, and now in this state, he can calmly activate the black flame. Mana begins to wrap around the sword. Kim raises his sword high, using the first style of mountain-splitting swordsmanship, Mountain Crush. Then he charges forward with the second style, Mountain Divide, and finishes with a thrust using the third style, Mountain Pierce. Kim comments that he's now used to combining mountain-splitting swordsmanship with the black flame, not to mention the useful traits he gained during training. He says he's completed the training goal, and there's only one important thing left to do, the mana cultivation technique. If he had refined the nectar before drinking it, he could have reached superhuman level 3, but now that he's at level 2, there's still some mana left in his body. To fully absorb the mana from the nectar and reach level 3, he needs a mana cultivation technique, but it wouldn't be easy to get one, since it costs tens of billions. He goes to the antique shop owned by Kim Chunbok, who asks why he wants to buy it. The shopkeeper comments that it had been sitting in the storage for over a decade, and Kim confirms the purchase, thus acquiring the mana cultivation technique. He was probably the only person who knew about the mana cultivation technique hidden in the antique shop, and now he heads to the Shinwon market, where the antique shop was located. He arrives at the store and notices something strange at the door, wondering why it was closed. And not only that, the doors were locked with a mana seal to prevent anyone from entering. Shinwon Market had the highest number of stores in the region, and there was nothing you couldn't find there. In the game during working hours, this place would be open no matter what, so he wants to know why it's closed, especially because of one fact: most other stores also close except for this one, making the place completely deserted. Kim wonders if the world of Arcane Seoul is different from the one he knows. A man was crouched beside a door. The young man shows up and asks if the market's situation has been bad lately, thinking that even the shop owner whose store was still open didn't seem to be doing well. The old man asks if he can't tell just by looking, since with gangs fighting every day, there's no way people would go there, and Kim comments about it being gang territory. That store owner curses the Iron Fist gang, saying that ever since the Dagger gang was wiped out, the smaller gangs have been fighting each other every day. Kim repeats about them fighting among themselves. In the original game story, the Iron Fist gang destroys the Dagger gang directly and claims their territory as their own, which naturally puts Shinwon Market under their control. But this time, he was the one who destroyed the Dagger gang, and because of that, the market became a battlefield with other gangs trying to claim it. Kim questions why that's happening. While gangsters wage an endless war, the warrior says he's going to take a look at them first. Members of 2 gangs were clashing, and the leader of the attacking group says that the territory belongs to the Poison Gang, telling the Iron Fist gang to get back to their corner, and that woman is the Poison Gang's vice leader, Steel Scorpion. The Iron Fist member calls them bastards, but someone else shows up asking what the hell kind of mess is going on in his territory. A group of men in their underwear. Scorpion complains that the perverts have arrived, but the exhibitionist, vice leader of the Naked Gang, says that this is his territory. Scorpion tells him to quit the nonsense and get lost, and the exhibitionist asks if they're really going to keep committing that sacrilege. The Iron Fist gang member thinks they're all lunatics and that he should get out of there. Kim appears and comments that it's a mess, and the gang member recognizes him as the one who wiped out the Dagger gang. But the warrior tells him to get up and do his job, ordering those damn thugs to stop fighting and gather up. And he tells the Iron Fist gang member to calm down because he'll help him, reflecting that to get the market back to normal, he'll need to establish a hierarchy. The Scorpion woman asks who he thinks he is to dare tell her what to do. The exhibitionist questions if that was an offer. Kim reflects that if he fought with all his strength, he might be able to win, but that could cause unnecessary damage to the merchants. So he needs to show his strength first, preparing his combat stance. The Scorpion repeats the names of his techniques: Mountain Crushing Swordsmanship and Divine Fever, and the exhibitionist asks if he was the one who annihilated the Dagger gang alone. Kim says that's right, and that he'll be generous this time, making them an offer they can't refuse to settle things with one-on-one fight. The vice leader of the Poison Gang asks if he thinks she's stupid enough to face a warrior one-on-one. The warrior says they'll compete in the category she feels most comfortable with, so they stand face to face. He asks if the man's specialty is mind control, because if he resists, the victory will be his, and the Naked Man says it's an honor. Such a beautiful man. He wants to forget the competition and have Kim join the religion of the primordial goddess, but Kim asks why he would ever join such a disgusting cult, since their religion isn't even part of the 7, nor listed among second-tier ones, just a random cult. He wouldn't join a pseudo-religion not even registered under the Peace of Westphalia. The Naked Man says that's expected from a non-believer, and he'll make sure to reshape Kim's mind with the love of his goddess, preparing his skill and commanding him to kneel before him, offering the opportunity to meet his goddess. Kim reflects that the mind control of priest class was definitely strong. His eyes narrow. He wants to kneel before the man, but he interrupts the control by punching the man in the face. The guy falls to the ground, groaning. Kim reflects that not even the saint could influence him, as the members of the nudist gang decide to retreat. The guy turns to the scorpion woman, who comments that he's not so bad, but the poison gang is on a whole other level than those perverts. Kim says he doesn't believe it and will only find out when it starts, because if her specialty is poison, she should give him the strongest one she has to drink. The girl jokes that since he's so willing to throw his life away, she'll help him with that. A member of the Iron Fist gang says drinking poison is basically asking to meet the creator, but Kim says he's pretty confident so it's fine. While the scorpion hands over a glass with poison and says if he endures it, he wins. The warrior thinks that, as expected, she gave him the picnic knockout, the poison known to cause the greatest pain among all of them, and he comments that the smell is awful, so she's getting punched if he survives, and the woman laughs, telling him not to beg for the antidote after drinking it. Kim downs the glass, saying that's not going to happen. The poison starts to hit his body, making the guy collapse to the ground, thinking it feels like his blood is boiling. The girl asks if he feels it now, because if he begs like a dog for his life, she might consider helping. Kim needs to concentrate, since their poison is made by mixing a special drug, and poison resistance won't work. He has to endure the damage as much as possible with his healing traits, so he can control the poison somehow. The scorpion is impressed as he focuses the poison's energy into his arm. Kim unlocks resistance to the drug and thinks he's ready, because with this skill, he can control the poison using his mana, and says that finally, he makes a small cut on his palm, letting all the poison spill onto the ground. A member of the Iron Fist gang comments that he concentrated all the poison's energy into his hand to expel it, while the scorpion says that's impossible, with a shocked expression. Kim grabs her hand and says the poison was super messed up, but now it's his turn, breaking one of her fingers. The woman screams in pain, falling to the ground now without her prosthetic. She asks if he thinks he can walk away unharmed after doing that to her. Kim tells her to stop with that typical loser talk and get lost. She walks away saying she'll remember this. The members of the Iron Fist gang start cheering, shouting hoorays for Warrior Kim, and the guy thinks that victory was certain, but what really matters is what comes next. Meanwhile, the merchants gossip among themselves that the Iron Fist gang won and wonder how much they'll be bothered now. Kim asks the gang member to admit he did everything to conquer this, and he thanks him, but the warrior asks them to keep one thing in mind in that market, since the protection fee will be half of what the Dagger gang used to charge, and the member says there won't be any profit. The warrior asks if he was talking back to him just now, and the executive denies it, saying his boss would understand. The merchants say he was the savior of his Shinwon market, thanking him with all their might, and Kim says he only did it so they would give him some discounts, thinking that Shinwon market literally has everything. The merchants agreed to give him at least an 80% discount anytime, and in doing so, he gains the favorability value from the NPCs. Kim goes to the antique shop of Kim Chunbok and is welcomed warmly. He says he's heard a lot about him, since he was the hero who saved the Shinwon market. The young man tries to be modest, but the merchant explains that gangsters were causing too many problems, since he had to close the store after getting caught up in a fight and broke his arm, and Kim asks if he got proper treatment. The old man says he received Kinsong therapy and it was effective, because if it weren't for the therapist, he'd still be stuck in the hospital. Kim asks if there's a Kinsong therapist in Silim, and the old man offers to introduce him, but the young man says he wants to buy something first. The merchant tells him to feel free because he has everything, except for what he doesn't. Kim says there's a lot of good stuff there, but he wants to see the items downstairs. The merchant asks how he knows about that, and Kim says he has his ways, while thinking the guy shouldn't underestimate a no-lifer with over 10,000 hours in the game. They head to a restricted door. Chunbok says he usually doesn't show that to new customers, but he'll make an exception for him, presenting his collection of magical goods and telling him to feel free to look at everything there. Kim Chunbok had many unique items back when he played, but above all, he has the Horn of the Ancient God, which contains a sealed cultivation technique and was a totally broken item. And now that the top priority has been secured, he was going to take everything useful. Laying the products out on the table, the merchant says, as expected, he has a sharp eye for detail. 5 colored diamonds, magic glasses, magic gloves, and the Horn of the Ancient God were all rare items. The total came to 2 billion won, and Kim repeats the amount in surprise. Chunbok says that would be the price for a stranger, but since he's the guardian angel of this place, he can offer a better deal, just 500 million. Kim jokes that he scared him with that price and hands over the money, thinking to himself that the 80% discount from being an NPC favorite was amazing. Now all he needs is to find a superhuman of priest class to release the holy seal, and of course he already got a hint on where the person might be. He asks if the old man could give him the address of the Kagong therapist he mentioned earlier. In the late afternoon, the area was full of buildings. Kim knocks on a door and asks if anyone's there, pressing his ear to the door, wondering if the person went out for a walk. But someone opens it and asks what he wants so early in the morning. Kim notes that the white hair and pale face match the guy he was looking for. He jokes that it was already afternoon and asks if he really considers this time early morning. And the young man asks what he wants. The warrior says the treatment is excellent, and the young man perks up, asking if he's a customer, and says he thought he was a damn gangster. He asks where Kim's injury is, but the warrior thinks that it's just as expected from the statue. The doctor tells him to lie on the bed, but Kim changes the subject because he wasn't there for Kaigong treatment. He was there to ask him to remove a seal. The young man repeats about removing the seal from an item and says he's a Kaigong therapist, and it seems like a holy seal, which would mean going to a temple for that. But Kim says no because they charge a ridiculous amount. If the young man can remove the item's seal, he'll give Priest Kim 100 million won. He's shocked to hear that, asking how Kim knows his name, and the young man agrees. Priest Kim was the third character in Arcane Souls tutorial. He's a priest of a forgotten religion that serves a deity who died 3,000 years ago, and he was one of the few innocent characters in the entire game. With so many delinquent priests in Arcane Soul, it's very hard to find a truly kind-hearted religious person. In other words, he has many uses for him, and the priest asks how he knows he's not a Kaigong therapist. The guy says he'll keep that a secret, and Priest Kim comments that it's not an easy task. Both sit kneeling on the floor. The priest is a little hesitant, extracting energy from Kim's artifact. Runes start to emerge from the band. He says it's working, removing the band from the item using only aura. He releases the Horn of the Ancient God, which grants him the cultivation technique ability Einherjar. Priest Kim is in disbelief that it actually worked, and the warrior says it's excellent. So the priest asks if it's a mana technique while the guy gives thanks, saying that from now on, he blows the horn and an aura fills the room. His body begins to be reshaped. Kim notices that the mana wasted in his body is being absorbed at that very moment and then steps on the ground, saying the effect is incredible, and it feels like the silence of the deep sea in Northern Europe has entered his body. After about 2 weeks, he'll be able to absorb all that mana and reach superhuman level 3. The priest claps, saying it's the first time he's seen a warrior class superhuman using a cultivation technique. Kim explains it's not common and he's certain about it, so his friend tells him to lie down on the bed since he must be exhausted. The warrior says there's so much information in his brain and he's tired now, so he'll be in his care for a while. So the priest jokes that since he paid a lot, he can rest as much as he wants. Kim reflects that he's a kind person, just like he was in the game, and it's good to find such a reliable priest because that'll be useful in the long run. The guy suddenly wakes up in bed, wondering what that noise was. The priest was pouring gasoline onto the money bag, and Kim asks what he's doing. Then he sets the gas canister beside it, lighting a lighter and calling upon the forgotten god to accept his offering and finally be resurrected. He drops the lighter onto the suitcase. Kim wonders what the hell is happening now. He stops the priest by pushing the lighter away and wants to know what's wrong with him. The priest explains that he must burn money and offer it to his god, because God only accepts money, and that's the only way to gain divine power, and Kim says he thought at this point he still believed that. Thinking about how the god that priest Kim worships has been lifeless for 3,000 years, and even in the game, the religion barely had any power left until he revived him. Still, he didn't think the priest wouldn't know how to serve his god the right way. So he says the method is wrong and that he doesn't need to burn money. He needs to burn gold and vaporize it. The priest asks about gold, saying that's something a heretic would say, but Kim figures he's probably never tried it before, and the guy confirms, saying his order established the method years ago. Kim says that's why his god still hasn't been revived, and burning gold is hard now, so he has an idea for another method, which intrigues the priest. He asks about this other method. The warrior explains that he has a method since he was helped with the mana technique, so he's going to help the priest too. The pot was boiling with a yellow liquid. The priest comments that they should stop there, that he probably shouldn't do this, but Kim tells him to just trust him and drink the gold because divine power will increase greatly, focusing and feeling like his god is responding, and since he insists so much, he lets him try. So the priest drinks the liquid and feels something different in his body. His smooth hair starts getting spikier and spickier, shining on the floor as he kneels. Kim asks about it and the priest screams, because the effect was better than when he burned millions of won. The warrior says that his growth will accelerate even more once he starts using this method, and the priest wants to pay him for such valuable information. Remembering something else he had, and gives Kim a necklace, which he recognizes as a sacred artifact containing the healing trait. The warrior accepts it and says he can't turn it down, thinking it was more profitable than he imagined. And come to think of it, Priest Kim's order always gave excellent quests too. He asks if he minds praying to his god with him, because he wants to repay the priest's service as well, all thinking that now he belongs to him. 1 week after the events, the priest asks Kim to stop, saying it feels like his whole body is turning into gold, but Kim warns him he still has more to consume. He says he'll end up with mana poisoning if he increases that fast, but Kim questions if that would really happen to him. The warrior assures him it wouldn't and tells him to keep praying, while thinking there's no need to worry because all 4 tutorial characters have their own unique traits. If Warrior Kim has the pure body, then Priest Kim will never suffer from mana poisoning, allowing him to grow at an accelerated pace. He then says the priest is done. Mana starts to envelop him, illuminating the entire area. Kim covers his face, as the priest comments he can't believe he's reached level 3 now, and that's a level where he can even prepare an apostle. The warrior says that at this rate it won't take long for him to become an apostle of his god. Priest Kim says he's still far from that, and his friend replies he already has enough divine experience to become one. But now that he's at level 3, he needs to summon a regional assembly to gain official recognition as a bishop, and the priest remembers his debt. Kim denies it, saying he only wants to help people, but thinks it's better not to forget it either and to become an archbishop soon to bring divine artifacts. The priest asks a favor. He was planning the regional assembly but is too embarrassed to go alone and asks if Kim could be his bodyguard. Kim accepts and tells him not to worry, thinking that now that his growth phase is complete, it's time to start his quest lines. The next day, in a church, some priests congratulate Priest Kim for reaching level 3. The priest thanks them, while Kim thinks the scale is small and the number of people attending the meeting is low. A man opens the door and says it's a truly pitiful sight. That was the bishop of the order who had arrived, and he asks who gave the priest permission to organize a regional assembly. The priest says everyone in the order has that right, but the bishop explains it only applies to normal priests, not to apostates. The young man asks if he's being called an apostate, but the bishop says he gained levels in just 3 months, and that's impossible with ordinary methods. He must have sold out his brothers to receive stronger divine power. The priest tries to deny it, saying he found a great method to level up, but the bishop tells him to shut up because he won't listen to any more excuses and orders them to capture him immediately. Kim interrupts, asking if they're really afraid of a kid like him, and the soldiers ask who he is. The warrior introduces himself as the priest's bodyguard. Annoyed, the bishop yells that this is church business and they don't need outsiders interfering. Kim says he's the bodyguard, not an outsider, and that nothing the old man is saying makes any sense. The priest explains that the method used was simple and involved melted gold, but the bishop calls it profane and says it's an evil act. Then the young man tries to argue that it's not profane and that God allowed it. The bishop prepares a spell, calling him a heretic and saying he would purify him personally and offer him to God, and that he should repent for his sins in the eternity of the eternal flames, causing an explosion in the area he struck. The cultists are shocked by what just happened, but Kim complains that the bishop can't just attack without warning. That's blasphemy. The bishop asks why he blocked his magic, but Kim also asks if he's really sure about attacking an apostle candidate. Furious, the old man asks how a heretic could possibly become an apostle, and the priest says he's not sure what he meant by calling him a candidate. Kim tells him not to worry, to eat the gold and pray. The bishop yells at Kim to leave if he doesn't want to burn along with him, but the young man says that if Priest Kim proves to be an apostle, the bishop won't know what to do. A light fills the hall. The priest had already begun to pray, so the bishop questions if this was the ascension of an apostle. Kim thinks he's shocked, and that's why he didn't turn the priest into an apostle yesterday, since the old man's incompetent, and not only that, he's jealous of the priest, so he has to be eliminated now. The condition for Priest Kim to awaken the trait is to swallow a golden artwork from a different order. While the bishop was being accused of blasphemy, it wouldn't be difficult to turn the priest into an apostle. Priest Kim calls upon his lord, leaving everyone in the room in disbelief as Kim points his sword and says that since the apostle is present, it's time to teach the heretics a lesson. He asks the priest to ask God something. How should one punish someone who took the life of a fellow bishop out of envy and tried to frame his son as a heretic to send him to hell as well? And the bishop asks how he knows that. The priest receives a divine message, saying that God has ordered the priest's life to be taken. Kim places the sword on his shoulder, saying that since it's a divine order he cannot refuse. Thus he quickly defeats the bishop. The soldiers ask what the hell is going on, and the faithful whisper among themselves. Kim reflects that he took his life before he could cause more trouble. The priest tries to argue that he was still a bishop of the order, but the guard rejects the plea, saying he deserved it, and asks what God commands now. He says that God has ordered him to go to the Levant region, where the First Order began, and offer gold there. Kim says choosing gold was definitely the right call, and he should go there to expand his influence, while thinking it was a way for him to atone for what he did, and the priest says he doesn't know how to repay the debt. But before that, he's going to give him a gift from the warehouse, and Kim tries to be modest, saying it's not necessary. Outside the church this time, Kim comments that the reward made him feel good about helping the priest, and he gave him some really valuable items, since he finally got the first R-rank holy sword, which is worth billions, and on top of that, a divine statue that grants a sanctuary around his location. Sanctuary is a skill that turns an area into a safe zone according to the owner's will, and if an enemy invades, it either repels or suppresses them. In other words, he no longer has to worry about being ambushed during his training, and it was time to enjoy training a bit. In the Mana Spring bath, Kim was submerged in the water. He stands up completely thin and exhausted, complaining that maybe he trained too much and not even the Mana Spring was healing him as it used to. But even with that, he had plenty of time to practice his Einherjar cultivation technique and mountain-crushing swordsmanship, and he could feel that his mana and proficiency had improved. It was time to check the results of all that hard work. Choi asks if the superhuman is okay, and Kim agrees, saying he felt like he needed to move a little anyway, and asks if there's any mission he can help with. Choi says they're in a complicated situation right now and asks if he remembers the first landfill. Kim replies that he does and can't forget, thinking that it was because of that he realized how scary Arcane Seoul could be. The director says an entire cleanup team went there and didn't return, which means there are at least 6 mutants there now, and Kim asks about the Janitor Association. He then explains that the public officials issued a secret mission and said they don't want this to turn into chaos. Kim says for sure some people will get fired if it spreads, and asks what the reward is for completing the mission. Choi says the reward is bad, since instead of 100 million per mutant, they offered an arcane rifle with a cursed debuff. The warrior asks what kind of debuff it has. Then, the director explains that it's related to him, as the rifle was used by the Order. Kim thinks it's a request he can't refuse, since the arcane rifle is used by the Order of the Old Priest and applies a black flame debuff. So he accepts, saying he'll head there now. The arena was filled with black flames. Kim walks to the center with a flame rifle. He comments that it hadn't been cleared out for a few days, and was already contaminated like this. Something about it felt strange. He couldn't see clearly and had to be ready for an ambush. Noticing something moving through the smoke, Kim turns, but the figure shifts to the opposite side. Then he thinks the monster sounds were coming from multiple directions, and it was impossible to tell where they were coming from. A purple light strikes his face. Kim turns, saying the attack came from there. Coming face to face with a bat monster, he starts shooting, yelling at the monster to go to hell, hitting its chest, abdomen, and leg. The monster begins to fly overhead, and Kim keeps shooting. He wonders if that was all, since its wings seem to be bulletproof. The monster charges at Kim again, firing a beam at him, but the young man dodges. He says that if he hadn't switched to the evasion trait, he would have been torn to pieces. With a flying and bulletproof enemy, it would be a disadvantage for him if the fight dragged on. In that case, he lowers his weapon, aiming at the monster's head. He says he's going to end the fight with just one precise shot, pulling the trigger. The bullet hits the bat's head. It falls on top of Kim, spilling blood on his clothes. He gains the aim trait. Then he comments that he won, and not to mention he received a high-grade shooting trait. But a noise begins around him. He says the mutants were heading his way because of all the noise he made, but he can't fight them all at once. Then he smiles and says maybe he can. Kim hides stealthily behind a pillar. He thinks he'll wait for the enemies with his traits first, but some kind of slime was crawling toward the spot, an army of monsters made of gelatinous material. Kim smiles, saying the squishy ones have arrived, while pulling out a grenade, and as soon as they all gather in one place, he'll wipe them all out at once, causing a massive explosion in that area. Kim says he has plenty more where that came from. Firing a rocket launcher toward them, the blobs begin to break apart. Kim comments that he should use smart tactics like this more often, but then he notices something strange in front of him, asking what that was since those monsters didn't make any sound as they approached, so he hadn't noticed them. But they aren't real mutants, they're specters controlled by a necromancer. Several of them are there. A monster with a radio calls out to the superhuman, asking to have a conversation with him. Kim wonders about a talking specter. The radio begins to emit a static sound. Kim realizes the guy was speaking through the loudspeaker of the specter, so the person talking to him must be the necromancer, and the specter asks why he's causing trouble in his territory. Kim thinks calling a contaminated facility territory is odd. But one thing comes to mind. The Custodian Association on the surface is supposedly a benevolent organization that cleans contaminated mana, but in reality, it's one of the game's most notorious villain organizations. Purifying contaminated mana is just a cover for them. Their true nature is to commit all kinds of dirty acts to expand their power. They were behind that incident too, and they created a situation where the government would have no choice but to ask for their help, thus strengthening their influence. In the meantime, they plan to use the incident as an excuse to fire officials who were hostile to them. The Spectre suggests that since there's no real reason for this fight, Kim should join the Custodian Association since he's talented. Kim comments on the idea of joining a terrorist organization made of mutant creatures, and the Spectre replies that he would be among the top ranks of the association. The young man tells him to go to hell, saying the name doesn't sit right with him, and it's lame. Laughing, the Spectre says Kim doesn't know his place, and if he doesn't want to join now, he can join once he becomes a corpse knight. Kim fires his flame rifle, causing an explosion in the area. The young man agrees with the Spectre on that point, but the radio glows red, making the Spectres appear again. Kim complains that firearms are useless against Spectres, and in that case, he draws his sword, saying the holy attribute works wonders against dark monsters. The Spectre asks about the holy sword, wondering if Kim isn't a frightener. Kim tells him to shut up, because he's going to find him and tear him apart. The warrior cuts down every Spectre in his way. Thanks to the attribute advantage, the fight wasn't too hard for him, but still, the monsters kept coming, and he'd have to change his strategy. With his trait specialized for resistance, and by adding the unique trait of his artifact, he has 9 active abilities, which should be more than enough. So he charges forward, saying, "Here I go," launching sword projectiles at the monsters. He notices it's working, to a certain extent. Then he rushes toward the army with his sword. One of the Spectres pulls back. Kim thinks it's staggered and that he just needs one more hit. Running to the same spot as before, energy begins to form beneath his feet. Kim had just acquired a new trait called Charge. Then the guy glorifies his new ability. He rushes through, shattering the monsters, saying that a linked trait was coming from it, jumping as high as he can, and acquires the Jump trait. With Charge and Jump, it should be easy for Kim to escape the encirclement. And for the weaker enemies, he's able to pass right through them, hitting everyone. Kim exhales heavily after that. Most of the Spectres had been defeated, but the problem was that he was exhausted. The radio says it didn't expect him to be a paladin, and now it wants him even more. Kim tells it to show up if it's so confident. The Necromancer replies that he's not dumb enough to fight hand-to-hand with a warrior, and he should accept this gift, summoning a level 2 monster. Kim complains that he didn't even get a chance to heal properly. While dodging the servant's attack, a cursed arrow flies toward him, hitting Kim in the back. He wonders about this combined attack. The Necromancer comments that his movements are decent, as he's quite useful paired with a corpse knight. Kim remembers a certain rule in Arcane Soul, that when fighting a Necromancer, you can't just go for his servant. He charges in to slash the monster, but it dodges under his leg. He asks where the Necromancer went, and sees a light coming from the top of the stadium, saying there he is, and now he can go straight for him, flying as high as he can, and calls the Necromancer a damned coward, because he was about to punch him down. The Necromancer jokes that he used a bit of his brain, while reflecting that he is a B-rank Necromancer named Charon. He's one of the directors of the Janitor Association and the final boss of the Landfill Dungeon. Charon says things won't go the way he wants, grabbing his arms with spectral hands. The hands begin to pull Kim. Charon yells that he'll never reach him, and now he should go to hell, launching several arrows at him. The Necromancer says he loved the sound of his scream, and that Kim should know his place. Kim simply reflects that this is Charon's ultimate move, Black Fire, and the Necromancer declares it's his end. Kim breaks free from the hands and says that was exactly it. Charon asks if that's all he's got, because it's such a lovely final effort. But the warrior replies that he never needed to be right in front of him to begin with, because if he prepares for the move, something funny happens, changing his traits to 6 attack traits. Charon activates his skill and tells him to stop spouting nonsense and just die already. Kim simply braces himself to take the hit. He thinks the moment has come, because when the trinity of swordsmanship, magic, and physique converge in perfect harmony, this trait manifests in the face of imminent destruction, the ultimate technique that cuts through all that is tangible and intangible with sword aura, slicing through Charon's attack. The Dark Mage screams that this couldn't be happening. The trait is called Clarity, the strongest swordsmanship that only those who've reached the peak of the blade can master, and it slices the Necromancer in half. An explosion erupts in the area. Kim falls toward the ground, exhaling in exhaustion because he almost lost his life. But even so, he defeated the level 3 superhuman and dungeon boss Charon. In the game, if you want to clear this dungeon at level 2, you need a full party, and even at level 3, you can't solo it with regular traits and gear. And he only managed to win because he played this game for over 10,000 hours. but with a smile, he says it's time to collect his rewards now. He heads to the agency. Choi flatters him, saying he really managed to clear that place full of mutants and it was amazing, but Kim tries to stay modest, though he complains about having hurt his arm and needing to be more careful, and the director apologizes for it. The soldiers thank him for the hard work and can't believe he took down all those mutants, and Kim says he was just doing his job. When he entered the landfill, something totally different from the mission happened. He asks if they recognize the sound equipment and cameras there. The soldier asks if it wasn't the mana chip that creates specters, as it's something used by Charon from the Janitor Association. Kim confirms it because this incident wasn't an accident, it was on purpose. Then the soldier slams the table, cursing the association, and the warrior comments that they clearly don't like them. The soldier says they always charge ridiculous fees. They've had hard times in the past in conflicts, but they never expected them to use innocent people. Kim thinks he has no idea because it all makes sense now with the ugly truth of the Janitor Association only beginning to surface after completing the landfill mission. The soldier salutes the young man and apologizes for putting him in danger because of the crate, but Kim accepts it since he needed to deal with those villains. Then the man hands over a briefcase, saying it contains the promised reward, and Kim asks why he's giving 2 cases. He explains that one is an arcane weapon and the other is a bonus for doing something so dangerous, and the warrior thanks him for that, thinking that he got an essential potion for free, when he'd normally have to buy at the temple, and the soldier asks the superhuman to be careful, since they plan to accuse the Custodian Association based on the evidence he provided. But that means, Kim finishes the thought, saying they'll retaliate against him, and the soldier agrees because they can't let something of this scale go unpunished. But the young man says he'll be fine and will find a way to survive. Driving through the night street, Choi comments that it's a good idea to stay under the radar a bit longer to avoid the Custodian Association. Kim thought hiding wasn't a great idea. After completing the landfill mission, the player receives linked missions, inevitably entering conflict with the Custodian Association. That's only natural, since the player caused trouble, especially taking the life of the association's director, Charon. What's important is that the Custodian Association's questline is divided into multiple routes, and the worst one is doing nothing and wasting time. In that case, the association's president will attack the player's house with dozens of superhumans. On the other hand, the route with the lowest difficulty. Kim asks if the director has heard of a place called Jeonnubong, and Choi confirms since it's in the restricted southern zone of Silim. It has a large-scale poppy farm, so going there would be risky, and says that place belongs to the Custodian Association, and Choi wonders what they have to do with poppies. Kim explains it's not about the poppies. They're conducting body modifications and abductions there. They're more than just a criminal organization. Choi shouts that they're insane, and the warrior confirms it. That's exactly why he wants to hit that place first. Terrified, the director swerves the car. Kim says he needs a lot of things, and here's the list of what he needs prepared. Choi reads it. Claymores and EMP bombs, stuff used in actual wars. Not only would it cost a lot of money to buy all that, but Kim says worrying about money is something only amateurs do, because those are items he obtained while taking down monsters at the landfill. Choi says that's enough to cover the cost, but assures him that not even he could fight the association alone. The president is a level 4 superhuman, and the executives are level 3. Kim says he's not fighting alone, but for now he doesn't need to worry about anything besides the items he requested. 2 days later, at the Jeonnubong hideout, there were 2 guards. A spectral hand creeps up behind one of them, twisting the man's neck. His partner asks who it was, but gets struck in the chest and thrown back. Kim appears from stealth, commenting that he loves infiltration no matter how often he does it. That should be enough for the outer guards. Now it's time to check the underground area. Someone lands a punch. Iron Fist confirms to Warrior Kim and thanks him for clearing the way, saying he'll easily secure the underground, because they're clearly villains, forcibly modifying people's bodies and then discarding them. This time they've gone too far, and Kim agrees with their destruction. He asks if the whole place was checked. Iron Fist says yes, because it was a very complete modification workshop. Kim tells him to keep it once everything's over, since it can boost his men's power. Iron Fist asks if he really thinks he can beat them all, since it's troublesome. The warrior confirms, asking if he's ever seen him act without certainty. And the Jeonnubong hideout was their main source of income, yet their security was weak. He lights a lighter and says, this is the best place to start the fall of the association. The next morning, in a massive building, someone runs into the room, alerting the president with urgent news. The Jeonnubong hideout was attacked. The president asks how that happened. His subordinate explains that it was the same guy who killed Director Charon and invaded the Jeonnubong hideout. The president slams his glove on the table, asking how he dares to attack so brazenly, being part Diop, a level 4 superhuman. The subordinate says he also sent a picture. Seeing a photo of Kim mocking them, the president asks if he also burned down his farm. Then he smashes the phone screen and asks if his name is Warrior Kim because he's going to take his life and cut him into pieces. The soldiers go to check the Jeonnubong base. One of the men comments that he must be a lunatic for burning the entire farm, but orders them to capture the man and infiltrate quickly to end the situation, since he's going to show the president the power of the Department of External Affairs. They proceed through the wreckage path. The leader comments that he might try to shoot from a distance, so they should be careful, and his colleague agrees, saying he'll capture him as soon as he spots him. However, he notices a weapon in the window. The bald man shoots toward the weapon, thanking him for the good work, breaking the glass window and making the weapon rise. He says his prediction was right, and his colleague tries to flatter him. An earthquake begins to shake the area. Then an explosion hits some members of the army. The captain yells it's a claymore, and his subordinate asks what they should do, while rocket launchers fire toward the two of them. So the captain is afraid of what might happen. Kim watches all of it through a camera, laughing, and comments that it was great pulling an all-nighter installing bombs and mines. Thanks to his special trait, there's no way they'll detect the traps beforehand. The soldiers shout about the mines, and Kim says he's not crazy enough to fight hundreds of them head-on, and that he's going to defeat them all remotely from this underground control room. Several mines explode in the area, but there's a mana shield in the middle. One man comments that he really prepared well despite how things looked, just as expected from a man who openly provoked their organization. Another man asks to leave it to him, since he just analyzed the tactics, being the cyborg, an R-rank level 3 superhuman, and the vice president of the Janitor Association. The president orders them to bring Kim alive and to defeat him in the most painful way possible. Another grenade is thrown to the ground. The cyborg guides them, saying it's safe there, and that they should keep throwing grenades to check for traps, proceeding slowly. But a rocket is suddenly launched at them. The cyborg slams it away with his hand, deflecting it, asking if they found the position, and a soldier confirms, saying it was launched from the right side of the cover. They fire at that specific spot. One of the rocket launchers gets damaged. The cyborg says that's excellent because they're almost in the same building and will show him what they got. Or maybe he's already scared by now. Kim watches and mutters into the camera, saying that as expected of cyborgs, they're really inhuman. The alarm starts ringing, surprising him. He comments that they arrived faster than expected, and the rookie assassin mission definitely lived up to its evil reputation. Hitting the doorknob, they burst into the room. Ebony and Viper, two level 3 superhumans, ask why he's hiding like a rat when he should be playing with them. But the room is already empty, and Viper says he knew they were coming. Kim had his invisibility activated, and says he already knew, because the Janitor Association's plan was to create a commotion in the front as if they were launching a war, while the executives attacked from behind. Of course, he knew all their tactics. Then he throws a flash grenade, telling the girls to take this, blinding both agents. They scream that it was a trap. Kim escapes from them, agreeing, and says he wants nothing to do with them. Viper yells that she'll take his life once she catches him. The warrior runs, thinking the assassins will catch up soon, and he has to move quickly. A shot hits the wall, and Kim thinks he has to defend himself first, crouching down. He creates a mana shield to block the assassins. They fire in his direction. Kim tells them to shoot all they want because he's going to block everything. But Ebony draws a revolver and tells him to block these bullets. One of the bullets pierces the shield. Kim suddenly looks to the side, as his shield shatters and he runs. The guy then falls to the ground. Ebony asks what he thinks, because the bullets are imbued with explosive magic. Kim curses the situation he's in. Viper tells him to take his dessert while throwing a dagger, which hits him in the abdomen. Kim winces in pain from the hit. Viper says that's nothing compared to the pain she's about to inflict, and Kim says yeah, right, saying they're just villains in bad latex outfits, making the girls furious. The girl rushes at him with a kick, saying she's going to fix his attitude. Thrown against the wall clock, Viper asks if it hurts, since it's a potent venom that affects the arteries, so it must be hard to endure. Grabbing the collar of the young man's shirt, Ebony says she's taking him to the president, but Kim gives a smile, saying they are welcome to their fate, and asks if they weren't hearing that ticking sound, because it reminded him of something, since it was almost like a giant time bomb. He activates charge in his feet, telling them to stay there and rot, while thinking that this duo is stronger than Charon, and he couldn't guarantee victory in a direct fight. So he removed all his traits to act, luring them to the clock while they had their guard down. Because inside the clock, he had installed white phosphorus munitions that cost $1 billion. Wishing the ladies a good night's sleep, the girls complained that it was another trap, causing a massive explosion in the area. Kim sighs a little on the ground, commenting that he still managed to defeat the executives, but there are more of them on the way, and he needs to recover quickly, especially because he doesn't know when that machine guy will show up. And there he is, facing the cyborg's army. Kim stands up, complaining that it just had to happen the moment he mentioned him. He stands before the massive army, calling out the guy while gritting his teeth, and asks if he defeated Ebony and Viper. Kim says he'll end up just like them in a moment, but the cyborg tells him not to dare die so easily, since he'll make sure to modify him until he begs for hell. The young man complains that those lines are terrible, and he should try to be more human next time, but the vice president says talking to him is a waste of time. Raising his weapon toward him, Kim asks if he knows how much he loves that they modified their bodies beyond imagination, and thanks those idiots as he presses a button. Electricity surges through the cyborg's brain, and he asks what that was. While getting shocked, he wants to know what's happening. Kim shoots, saying that 1,000,000,000 in EMP bombs and shotguns are his best friends when dealing with machines, and hits the entire cyborg army. Kim squints, surprised, seeing the cyborg still standing. Enraged, staring at the young man, Kim asks how much money he spent on his body. Since EMPs don't work on him, the cyborg charges forward, saying he'll finish him off here and now, and strikes Kim's shotgun, asking if the guy plans to dodge forever as he attacks again. Kim thinks his power is huge, and he has to be faster than him, striking the cyborg's hand. He notes that everything is metal except the eyes, and it's bizarre, while the cyborg says his sword is pathetic. Activating a thruster in his shin, he kicks, complaining that it doesn't even tickle him. Kim slams into a building wall, thinking his body is covered in mana and the blades don't work, while the cyborg steps on his chest. He asks what more he expected from his weak body. Kim calls his enemy a dirty RoboCop, while reflecting that it's a mechanical body powered by mana. The cyborg prepares his blade and warns he'll separate both his arms and replace them with umbrellas, and asks what that cute little pistol is, while Kim says he's got an idea as he stares at the robot's disgusting body. His enemy asks if he hasn't realized that mere bullets don't hurt him. Kim says it won't be a mere bullet, and activates the black flame as the bullet is fired. It hits the cyborg's thigh, who asks what that is. While flames engulf him, Kim says his mechanical body runs on mana, and black flames burn mana. In other words, once black flames get inside his body, they won't stop, and he should have stopped his modifications at some point. The soldier begins to kneel, burning in the fire. Then Kim raises his sword, bidding farewell to the monster. The cyborg closes his eyes, groaning slightly, now lying on the ground while the young man stands, saying that now only the final step remains. Outside, a rifle fires. He announces that it's time to eradicate the Custodian Association, and they're nothing but cowards fleeing without their executives. The soldiers try to run, screaming that there's no hope left, but Kim says their screams are like music to his ears. An ear-piercing pain hits the young man, who complains about his eardrums. He wonders if he's finally going to show up now that the war cry has begun. Those red tiger eyes belong to the president of the Custodians, telling him to wait right there. He crouches down, ready to jump, leaping toward Kim's location, and landing on the ground, ready to fight. Kim wonders what the hell that was, since he just jumped from the ground to the rooftop of a 5-story building. The president says he's never experienced such humiliation before and will punish him with pleasure. For messing with the Janitor Association, charging forward to punch him, Kim tries to draw his sword to block the strike, getting launched far from the building. The guy thinks he would have lost his life in one blow if he hadn't switched his traits to defensive ones, but he won't be able to win fighting like that. He slashes with his sword. The president dodges easily and says he uses interesting abilities. Kim shoots with his black flame weapon and asks what he thinks of that, but it's blocked by a mana shield and the president says he likes it. Kim thinks he easily blocked both his clarity and black flame, as the president closes in to punch him, striking the guy in every possible spot. Kim falls to the ground thinking he's unbelievably strong, and as expected, this was impossible from the start, as Dayop asks if that's all he's got. The president was born as an SR character, while he's just a beginner. He has a much higher level than him, and the gap is insane. The president asks if this is his final effort, while Kim wants to know if the president knows how he defeated his subordinates. He took down Ebony and Viper with white phosphorus and the cyborgs with EMP bombs, and asks if the president knew all of that, but he says it's impossible to be that well prepared. Kim denies it with a smile. Dayup is suddenly left in total disbelief. Kim's clothes start getting torn as he takes invisible hits. The only way for a level 2 superhuman to win against a level 4 was to activate the mutant body. His arms mutate, growing stronger and stronger. His legs enlarge, and he grows in size. Kim's face becomes completely transformed. Activating the skill, Mutant Warrior Kim, Dayup asks how he could choose to become a mutant. Kim, with a demonic face, opens his eye, thinking he might lose his mind at any moment. But he prepared for situations like this with the Berserker glasses, granting the trait Frenzy to its user for a limited time. This was the item that let him gain the exact trait he needed right now. Crushing the glasses in his hand, and Frenzy is obtained, clearing his mind of all distractions, focusing only on battle, unleashing power beyond limits. Kim thinks that now he can relax his mind, because only bloodshed, violence, and combat are filling his brain. The demon rushes toward the president, smashing into his robotic arm. Dae-up comments that he doesn't know what ability he just used, but one thing's certain: this just got more interesting, and he wants to start enjoying this, so the two are going to have fun. Kim says this is exactly what he wanted. They exchange blows. Dae-up says it won't be enough, and Kim agrees. The same goes for him. Trading multiple hits between them, Kim lands a strike to the man's side, and the president retreats slightly. The warrior gains 2 traits, super strength and iron armor, and the thrill of the fight overtakes his consciousness. He could do this all day, and Dae-up acknowledges it, saying it's been a while since he had a fight like this, but he's already analyzed him, and victory is his. Kim charges forward, telling the director to stop bluffing, but is surprised when he looks to the side. Dae-up says he was just throwing punches non-stop, without any kind of technique. Kim swings horizontally, but the president dodges and goes low, preparing a strike and saying it's like a punch from someone who doesn't know how to fight, and hits the monster in the chin. Kim drops to the ground, nearly unconscious, thinking that in close combat the advantage is his. Besides, the frenzy effect was wearing off. There's no other way, he has to put everything into this attack. He needs to give up on hand-to-hand combat. Dae-up asks what kind of trick he's trying now, because he's going to finish him off while charging in. He grabs the president's forearm. Kim admits that he's better at hand-to-hand combat, but he's not a brawler, he's a swordsman, transforming his arm into a bone blade. Dae-up is completely shocked near the blade, and Kim uses clarity on the president's abdomen. He screams in pain, and comments that the guy can even use clarity with his bare hands. Kim says it was a good fight. Dae-up calls him a monster, before collapsing to the ground, finished. Kim thinks he pushed himself too hard, and his body was giving out, suffering from a status debuff due to the changes in his body. His eye develops a red dot, and starts moving sideways. Kim screams in pain as he suffers, but a yellow aura begins to surround him. His face starts to look human again. Kim had reached superhuman level 3, and says thank God he leveled up just in time, because he was ridiculously lucky, falling to the ground with his hand still shaped like a blade. Kim was unconscious at that moment. He returns to his mana source, resting under the healing waters. Kim suddenly regains consciousness, asking if he was home, while Choi calls out to the superhuman, and hugs him, asking if he's okay, while Kim questions what happened. The director thought he had kicked the bucket, since he was lying on the ground with all those custodian association guys, and Kim says he brought him home. Choi noticed he was breathing and placed him in the mana source, but he had been unconscious for an entire week. Kim says he's mostly healed. The director says he's amazing for wiping out the custodians alone, and that the office has been getting calls full of requests. Kim agrees that he's something special. Choi keeps praising him, and Kim stays modest, but he made sure to gather all the loot from the battle, and the warrior should check it out later and let him know if he needs anything. Kim says he should heal first, but now that he's level 3, there's a place he needs to visit. A week later at the association building, he walks up to the mana measurement machine, saying he's now level 3, and is going to receive the official certificate with all included benefits. Serin congratulates the superhuman, saying she's never seen someone grow so fast, and asks if he plans to found his own country in the future. Kim jokes that he's not going that far, asking if he can receive his certificate, and Serin guides him, saying the official certificate is right there, and he thanks her while the girl says she envies him. Kim asks why she's envious. Serin says for many reasons she wishes she could be as strong as him, and the warrior thinks that her showing this kind of emotion felt a little strange, since it was unimaginable in the game. But there's nothing to do now, so might as well. He offers the girl the chance to become a superhuman, and Serin says yes. Kim asks if she'd like to become his student, because he can guarantee she'll become a superhuman, and she asks how. Kim tells her to trust him, because he can see the potential in Miss Bake. She gets excited hearing about her potential. Kim confirms it and thinks he can see her potential to become an SSR, and asks what she thinks. Serin stays silent for a few seconds, but agrees because she thinks she can trust him. Kim says it's a wise decision and reflects that it's time to train an SSR rank warrior, and she doesn't need to pay tuition. She can pay him back once she becomes a superhuman. Serin says that's nice and all, but it's good to know she failed to awaken even after taking dedicated classes, and it won't be easy. Kim tells her to just trust him and not worry, thinking that he knows everything about her awakening. Sky-crushing star, it's a trait that gives form to an incarnation of killing intent that stains the world in blood. That's Serin's power, granting plus 1000% combat experience. However, while it greatly boosts her experience points through battle, it also comes with side effects. Her mind risks being consumed, turning her into a lunatic. Serin has a backstory that fits her unique ability. Kim says he'll need to prepare well, and Serin asks if that means he needs money. The young man says no, since all she'll need is mental strength, not money. A secretary interrupts the two, asking for Mr. Kim, saying someone wants to invite them to a meeting and they should go to the 5th floor lobby. Kim asks what this invitation is about. Riding one of the elevators, he thinks that the Tower of Superhumans is based on level floors, and since he was called to the 5th floor, it means he was invited by a level 5. No one comes to mind, so he wonders who it could be. Woojin calls out to his teacher, leaving Kim surprised, and the young man says he expected it, but yes, it really was his student. The boy congratulates him for receiving his level 3 certificate, and was happy to see him, while Kim says the same, though he thinks to himself that the boy reached level 5 really fast. He hands over a box and asks his teacher to keep it, saying it's a gift to congratulate him, but Kim says it's not necessary. It was an item containing the mana focus trait and was perfect for a warrior who uses mana. Asking how he could refuse a friend's gift, he pats Woojin on the shoulder. The boy says there's a reason he called his teacher and asks if he can request a favor, and Kim questions that serious expression all of a sudden. Woojin asks if he's willing to help his friends who were also suffering from divine fever. Kim wants to know if they received the curse from the order of the old priest too, and Siu confirms, as his 4 friends have been enduring it since childhood. The warrior talks about the 4 people suffering from divine fever, and wonders if they were referring to those characters. If so, it was the perfect opportunity to make things easier. Kim agrees that he can't ignore those in need, and Woojin thanks him. The warrior asks if he can meet them before starting treatment, and Siu agrees, saying he'll arrange it with them now. So they head to the first security mansion. Woojin introduces his 4 friends. Kim thinks he was right, as they were the supporting characters who backed up the paladin Siu Woojin. They're children from high-class families who were once held hostage by the order of the old priest, 2 boys, and 2 girls also affected by divine fever. Kim says he's going to be clear here and asks if they were all baptized against their will. The group members confirm and ask if it's really possible to cure it. Kim warns that his method is painful, but if they endure it, they'll awaken just like Woojin, and he wants to know if they got what it takes. The 4 friends look at each other, saying they'll do whatever it takes to be rid of divine fever and beg for help. Kim smiles and says that in that case, they were going to begin, unleashing his black flame. 1 week later in the same mansion, all 4 were able to awaken their powers. Kim reflects that they all succeeded without issues due to their innate talent. The 4 thank their teacher while crying, but Kim tries to stay modest. The parents of the 4 also call the teacher over, thanking him for everything he did for their children, and show him a table with gifts, saying it's a small token of gratitude, even if it's not much. Kim thanks them, saying it wasn't necessary, and that it was all due to their children's talent, while thinking he could benefit just by targeting rich families. It felt like he was playing some kind of pay-to-win lottery. He receives boots with the extreme speed trait, a detection helmet, a fury axe, an Acropolis shield, and 2 nectars. The parents say they chose the gifts together and hope he likes them. Kim turns around, saying he gives his sincere thanks for the reward, and thinks he's really lucky. And beyond all that, it was time to claim his true reward, heading toward a man. He approaches and asks if the teacher wanted to speak with him, and Kim confirms, saying he has a favor to ask the Galaxy Mall representative. The man says he's willing to do anything for him. Kim asks if he wants to enter the underground gold mine beneath the Hanam branch. He tries to say there's nothing underneath the mall, but the warrior explains that it's located between sections A1 and A2 of the 8th basement floor. The man says he doesn't know how Kim knows that, but still can't allow it, even if it's a request from the teacher. But Kim promises not to say anything about what he sees down there. The representative falls silent. Kim asks for just 1 day, that's all he wants. He'll keep everything secret. Entering the parking lot of that building, between areas A2 and A1, Kim stands. He breaks through a wall alongside Bak Surin. The girl says she can't believe there was really a hidden space in the wall, and Kim comments that this is the place where she'll awaken, because he worked hard to reach it. Surin asks if they're going to train in such a secret place, and the warrior confirms it'll be fun. Characters with Surin's power don't awaken normally. They need to be placed in extreme life-threatening situations, and this place is an undiscovered dungeon, the place where Surin will awaken in the future. She tells the warrior that the place is dark and has a strange smell that makes her anxious. A skeleton charges towards Surin, but she dodges by throwing herself to the ground, begging the warrior sir to please help her. But then she notices a katana beside her. Kim says it's time to train, leaving the girl confused. The teacher wants her to defeat the zombie, and Surin questions what he's saying. Kim wants her to fight for her life, because that's the way she'll awaken. Surin asks what kind of madness that is as the zombie charges at her. She suddenly turns around, cutting off the zombie's head and yelling at it to stay away from her. Kim thinks that her clumsy slash had a lot of power, and that Baek Surin really has talent beyond his imagination. He praises her good work and strong start. but the girl yells that her friend is mean for making her fight without warning, and Kim says she did well. The girl cautiously agrees, while the boy reflects that it was expected from one of the top 3 warriors in the game. Even without awakening, she fought like a sky-crushing star trait character the moment she entered battle. Serin asks if she'll have to fight alone, and her teacher confirms she can relax, but he's not letting her leave. The girl complains that wasn't reassuring at all. Separating a zombie's head, Serin swings her sword. Kim asks if she ever learned swordsmanship before, and the girl denies it, saying she's never done it. Wondering if she really has talent, Kim, annoyed, thinks he has to go through all kinds of crap to gain his skill, and hers is really strong. Serin asks how deep this place goes, since it seemed endless, and Kim says there's an exit on the other side, while thinking he's not leaving until she awakens. Something charges toward the duo. A zombie with a drill tries to attack Serin, but she dodges. Wondering why zombies are carrying drills, Kim thinks they were tricky enemies in the game too, and maybe he'll have to give her a hand. But Serin cuts off its arm, saying if it's a zombie, it should use its bare hand, but even so, it dared to carry a weapon as she cuts it down. Its body drops to the ground in front of her. Kim says that was a clean victory, and Serin explains it felt like her body just moved on its own. The girl screams as a zombie bites her leg. Kim kicks it, saying it's a damn nuisance. Serin wonders what she should do, but the warrior explains that it's common knowledge that if you're bitten, you'll turn into a zombie. The girl begs him to end her life before she becomes one. Kim repeats Miss Serin's name, saying that he has a solution for that, and thinks that this game already developed a cure for the virus. They sit close to each other by the wall. Serin says she was scared and thought she'd become one of those monsters, while Kim says this is a complicated world. The girl had been finding the zombies here strange, from their clothes to their equipment, and it looked like they were artificially created, and Kim agrees with her. The Galaxy Mall was built much faster than usual, considering its size, and that was only possible thanks to the huge number of workers, but having such a tight schedule caused many to get injured and lose their lives, yet the official death count was 0. The evil construction companies simply buried them there. Later, the mall's representative heard about it, but since it would severely damage their public image, he decided to hide this area along with the secret, and Kim thinks it was only possible because of how twisted this world is. Serin says she never imagined that, asking how he found out this secret, and Kim tries to dodge the question, thinking it's because the old priest's order released zombies in Seoul, and the dungeon that opened that day was in the restricted area of Galaxy Mall. He says he has a special ability, and Serin jokes that he has several. Kim reflects that this was the place where Serin awakened after being attacked by zombies, and he thought it would be the best place for her awakening, but there was still no sign yet. The girl says the victims had to suffer even after death. The least they could do is help them find eternal peace, and Kim jokes that she found a new sense of purpose. The girl says she felt a strange urge that she had to keep fighting. Kim comments that's not bad at all, and they should continue, while thinking it's just getting started. They head toward the back of the gold mine. Serin says it suddenly got really cold, and Kim agrees, saying it's creepy down there and they should be careful. Seeing an entrance to a warehouse in the back, there was a stone with something on top. It was a radio saying that there are 3 bears in the house: Daddy Bear, Mommy Bear, and Baby Bear. Serin says it sounded like a creepy fairy tale. An explosion occurs at that spot. Serin says it was amazing, and Kim tries to be modest, saying it was nothing. Something falls in front of them both. Kim picks up a cell phone and says it's the monster's mana core. The girl questions how a phone works like that, but the warrior explains that it happens often with ghost-type monsters. There was a little girl talking about the 3 bears at home. One of the workers who ended up there thought more about his daughter than himself before losing his life, and his resentment possessed the cell phone, turning it into a mana core. Serin hopes he can rest in peace now, and Kim agrees, saying he will. He lets go of the phone, which transforms into golden energy. 2 stars form in his hand. Kim comments that it's called a crystal, and that the girl should make good use of it, as she'll be able to get great equipment with it, thinking it's an amazing reward. But then an earthquake hits the mall. Serin asks what's happening now, and Kim explains that the area is going to collapse because they defeated the boss, and he asks if she's gotten used to the movement traits she just learned, which impresses the girl. Kim says it's time to run, and if she doesn't want to lose her life, she better run now. So they dash forward side by side. He says he's going as fast as he can, and that it'll be the end for her if she's too slow. Serin jokes that this is the fastest she can run. Kim thinks there's still a long way to the teleportation portal. She was about to push past her limits when a stone almost hits her. Her eyes turn red again, and Serin says it's fine. Since she awakened after going through so much, she can't lose her life here. Using the jump trait, Kim points out the teleportation portal ahead, thinking he can't help her now because he still needs to receive a trait, and the reason why she'll become one of the best units in the game is because of 3 powers. The Sky Crusher star allowed her to become stronger, and the Indomitable trait blocked the side effects of the star. And the last ability was, a stone hits the girl's shoulder. She falls to the ground on her knees, saying she won't give up no matter what, and she's going to survive no matter how. Charging forward with all her strength and acquiring the runaway train ability. She approaches as the ground cracks, running before the rocks can fall. Kim comments that he can't see her anymore, wondering if she failed. But Seren appears next to him and grabs her friend. She hugs him and asks him to go quickly. The warrior blushes completely, and so they enter the portal to get out of there. The falling rocks bury the area. Kim gains the narrow escape trait, granting him a second chance when he's close to death. He collapses on the ground with Seren in his arms. The civilians say they came from inside and were badly hurt. Kim comments that he knew she could do it, while thinking about having obtained the narrow escape trait, and now her 3 abilities have been collected. Seren calls for the warrior, and Kim remembers the girl, asking if she's okay and if she can stand up. The girl responds by asking if she looks okay, but Kim notes her face is red. Seren tries to explain why, saying she just wants to stay hugging him a little longer, asking if she can hold on like that for just a bit more, because she needs to fix her clothes quickly. And she holds on in front of him, thanking him, and Kim thinks she really caught him off guard. The girl says it was close, but they managed to get out. Kim reflects on her smiling face, even after awakening, definitely thinking that she's different from the game, and maybe it's because she awakened in a different way. Kim says they're getting out of this damn mall, and asks the girl to grab one of the stars. Seren asks if he's really giving her a crystal, since it would cost at least a few billion, and Kim agrees, asking her to try to move faster with it. The girl says it's too much for a gift, and she doesn't know if she can accept it. But the warrior tells her not to worry and to pay him later, while thinking there's a reason why he spent so many resources to awaken back Seren. The Sword of Mars was one of the top 3 in Arcane Soul, and it offered fast growth, but only Seren could use it, and it could only be learned through a memory chip. She thanks the warrior, and Kim tells her not to worry and just not to forget to pay later, while secretly thinking that he wants to learn her technique. Kim arrives at his house, thinking that all he wants is a little rest, but Woojin shows up, asking the Sir to go with him, while Kim wishes the world of Arcane Soul would just leave him alone. Kim gets in the car and thanks Seo for coming all the way there, and the boy says he's happy to pay for his friends. The warrior agrees but thinks he'd rather not have come now. Woojin says they managed to arrange a meeting with the Master of Armors and was really excited, and Kim thinks he can't skip the event if it's the Armor Master. In this world, good items lead to good skills, and the Master Craftsman who can create high-level gear is extremely busy. Woojin says that those who get in contact this time will be able to forge level 7 armors, and the guy is surprised, getting excited and asking to go quickly. When they get near a mansion, there were several men standing in front of it. Kim asks if he's serious, and Woojin jokes about it being a perfect house for a perfect craftsman. The warrior asks what ideology this craftsman is devoted to, but the boy looks confused, asking what kind of question that is all of a sudden. Kim realizes he didn't know and thinks it makes sense, considering how much he's been through, but that house belongs to Jo Chul, a follower of the old priest's order. He's a very devout believer in a religion that will be at the forefront of the order's warcrafters in the future. Kim thinks that although he refused to be baptized, Jo Chul was still willing to forge armor for him. A soldier interrupts them, asking him to extend his hand for identification, and tells the boy to show his black flame, while Kim asks what the hell he's doing, activating his magic and asking if that's enough for him. Woojin questions what that means and tells him to let go of his hand, saying they're clients with a reservation. A man in a wheelchair appears, telling him to stop. Jo Chul asks who gave him permission to treat clients like that. The paladin bows to his master, and the craftsman comments that even though he refused baptism, he awakened the black flame and stood out. Kim asks if that's how he's being treated, and Jo Chul apologizes, calling the two of them the light and savior recognized by the saint. The warrior is surprised and wonders what kind of nonsense that is, but the craftsman wants both of them to come in to discuss the kind of equipment they're looking for. Kim stays silent and cautious. Jo Chul presents his armor, saying that plate armor is his specialty, and since it's a request from the saint, he can make it in any style Kim wants. Kim looks to the side, searching, saying that he's already decided what he wants. He's going for an outfit with a bulletproof vest. Jo Chul asks if he's really going with that, and the warrior confirms because he loved the style. The man complains that it's nonsense because it's hard to imbue that kind of armor with magic, and they can't make something sacred out of it. Kim rejects the sacred armor, saying he just needs it imbued with giant and extreme, and thinks that judging by his reaction, he can tell what they were trying to push. The sacred armor, also known as Paladin's armor, grants an overwhelming amount of stats for tankers but has a critical drawback. To use the armor properly, the user requires a large amount of divine power. Increasing divine power only happens by entering a religion, and they're pretending to offer something good while trying to trap him in their belief system. So he grabs the man's hand and says he expects the best from craftsman Jo Chul. Kim leaves the room, telling Woojin that he doesn't like sacred armor, but one of the paladins is watching him. Jo Chul says he can only imbue a few traits into that armor, and the paladin wants to know if his master will really fulfill the request. The craftsman says he doesn't go against the saint's orders, and she said that Guy is the light and savior of their order, but the soldier doesn't believe it, because no matter how many times he thinks about it, he'll have to confirm it with his own eyes. A week later, at Chunbok's old-fashioned shop, the man talks to the superhuman. Kim drinks 3 bottles in a row, and the old man asks him not to take mandrake elixirs like that all the time. The warrior thanks him for the drink, and Chunbok asks if everything is really okay. He confirms, thinking he obtained the skill he needed, and thanks him for the gift. Chunbok comments that it was the least he could do for him, since he saved his market and business is booming now, which is why there are so many people today. A gang member bows to the superhuman. Kim recognizes him, saying he's that guy from the Iron Fist gang, and it's a pleasure to see him again, while the underling asks if he's been doing well. But he wants a moment of the gentleman's time because his boss wants to see him quickly, and Kim asks why. The underling warns that there are too many ears around and they should get moving. They drive down the night road in their car. On the way, he says they prepared a high-performance armored car for the gentleman and wants to know if he likes it, but Kim replies that it's not bad at all. As they head toward Murim, he thinks something is wrong and wants to know if the Iron Fist gang's headquarters has always been in Murim, because if he remembers correctly, that place is a slum full of lowlifes. The underling says the fuel is low and pulls into a station for a quick stop. Kim notices something strange on the sign. Recognizing Murim's gas station, the underling gets out of the car, saying, "What a beauty then." He asks the gentleman to rest there for a bit while he pulls a bottle from his pocket. Kim thinks that this was a trap with several sticks of dynamite in the back of the car. The warrior asks if he looks like an idiot to him and wants to know if he realizes whom he's messing with, and the underling wants to know what he's talking about. Kim kicks the car door, leaping outside, and tells him to stay right there with the bombs that were so carefully prepared. Throwing a grenade toward the car explodes and Kim escapes with a dash, saying the blast was bigger than what a single grenade should have caused. And, as expected, that guy was a traitor, thinking about the luxurious armored car heading toward Murim, and finally, the gas station. There's a reason he keeps having this sense of déjà vu, because all of these events happen in the story when Iron Fist Kim is betrayed by his own men. He doesn't know why, but a traitor from the Iron Fist gang was after him. Bullets fly toward Kim. The men say he's the guy from that comic, and if they capture him, they'll earn $1 billion. That way they'll make a fortune. Kim says it was obvious it wouldn't end with just bombs in the car, so the assassins keep shooting at him. The man crouches behind a car, saying there are too many of them and it won't provide cover for long, while he jumps, saying he has to get out of there first, and they probably weren't expecting that. The people keep firing at him. Kim turns, saying this is crap, and activates his mana shield, saying they're not even superhumans, and yet they can react so quickly. One of the soldiers orders them to aim for the center and finish him off. They fire at the shield with full force. It starts to crack in the middle. Kim wonders what kind of insane accuracy that is, and decides he'll retreat for now. But one of the shots hits his arm. Kim says he'll have to take this seriously, and he really didn't want to use this here since he just bought it. But he throws smoke grenades at the group. The grenades begin to take effect, completely surprising the mercenaries there. They shout that those are tear gas bombs, and they can't let him escape, since they need to kill him to get the antidote. Kim asks whom they thought they were chasing, when they're not even superhumans, and it was time to get out of there. Night falls over that vast city. Kim keeps moving with a swift stride. He comments that he's gotten far enough, since they were a group of assassins showing precision comparable to a superhuman. There's only one thing out there that could make that possible: the battle drug with serious side effects, but which can temporarily boost abilities. Considering they mentioned an antidote, he's sure that must be the case, and the problem is that the only person who can mobilize that many assassins is the human hunter, the only one who comes to his mind. Master of cowardly battles, active in Murim. His methods would be, first, use someone's betrayal to plant a bomb. Second, launch an attack by assassins under the influence of battle drugs. And third, the specialized long-distance shot. A light flashes from the building next door. A bullet streaks toward Kim. The man dodges by tilting his head, and he says that if he had been a little slower, he would definitely have lost his life. But the risk of that gamble was worth it, because now he knows where the shooter was hiding. Kim watches a house burning, and he leaps toward it, furious, saying he's got him now. Kim sprints toward the blazing house, thinking that to defeat the cowardly human hunter who only shoots from afar, he has no choice but to chase him down. Running through the flames, his whole body is burning, but he has to endure so the hunter won't hit him, because the smoke is in the way. A bullet whistles past his side. Kim says that to fight a skilled sniper, he looks at a building with a light on top, saying that's where he is, because finding his position is the top priority. The human hunter curses after that, and says he can't see him. Kim smiles, saying that after this, in the assassin's crosshairs, A bluish light rises above him. Kim has to close the distance and create an unexpected variable. The hunter asks how he jumped like that, but the warrior finally draws his weapon. Annoyed, the assassin asks how he dares challenge a marksman to a gunfight. Kim unleashes the black flame along with hundreds of his skills, charging the assassin while the latter fires back. The assassin's shot hits Kim's shoulder, saying he truly is a sniper, managing to act even in this situation. But even so, Kim's shot strikes the assassin's shoulder. The black flame engulfs his neck. He remarks that Kim's bullets are lethal even when they only graze, closing in on the assassin, who is groaning in pain from the hit. Kim shouts that he's won, but his foot starts sinking into the ground. Kim asks if this is a trap spell, while the human hunter calls him kid, telling him not to overthink it. The warrior says it's bad, he can't break free of the trap, and the assassin yells he'll pump him full of holes, while Kim thinks that if he douses the black flame with holy water first, he's done for. He hadn't expected this to turn into a race against time. For now, he has to slow his sinking by reducing the magic damage. It's brute force, but he digs his hands into the ground beside him, because survival comes first. Using his mana to climb out, Kim employs his purification trait to erase as much of the trap spell's mana as possible. Noticing something a bit different there, because the hunter shed the black flame. He says he'll give Kim credit for resisting the trap, but the warrior took too long. Kim yells that he already snuffed out the black flame, while the hunter grabs for his gun and says victory is his, and if he kills Kim, he'll be set for life. He's about to finish him, but Kim has already vanished. The hunter is completely stunned, and is met with a punch to the face. Kim says that's the thrill of a comeback. Thank goodness he grabbed that ability at the last second, gaining the earth resistance trait, and it worked. He tells the hunter he's a sniper and shouldn't even think of attacking at this range, but must say who placed the contract. The hunter admits defeat and says he'll tell everything, but wants to light a cigar. Kim lets him go, telling him to talk. The hunter pulls out a lighter and lights the cigar. However, the warrior just watches, head bowed, asking if it tastes good. The hunter says he loves it because it tastes like sweet victory, then begins mutating. He lunges at Kim, but there's a hole in his chest. The man asks how Kim knew. Kim replies that a 10,000-hour player would recognize a cigar that turns its user into a mutant. The hunter falls face first to the ground, asking what on earth that was. The warrior says it was unexpected, because the human hunter is a crafty fellow who usually surrenders at the brink of defeat, but this time chose to fight to the end by mutating, and he must have had his reasons. Kim picks up a flash drive and says it's alright, because they'll find out who was behind everything. He heads to the Shinsu agency. A news report says that last night a shootout between Muram gangs and the explosion of a gas station claimed dozens of lives. Choi asks how he survived all that, and Kim says that's why he's this beaten up, and it was dangerous. The director asks who attacked, but the young man says it's a long story and he doesn't know where to begin. A door swings open as Iron Fist Kim tosses a body inside. Choi is completely stunned, but Iron Fist apologizes for failing to keep watch over his subordinates. Kim says it's good he knows, while the director complains about them breaking his door. He wants to know if the Iron Fist gang attacked his friend, and Iron Fist Kim explains it was low-rank subordinates. Even so, after interrogating the culprit, he got some useful information. Kim asks whether the guy who targeted him was desperate for money or something. Iron Fist says the man lost everything on illegal bets and was drowning in loan shark debt. Whatever the reason, it was his fault, and he apologizes. Kim accepts that and says that even as a boss, keeping track of every gang member isn't easy, and thinks he doesn't know, because if it hadn't been for him, Iron Fist would have been the target of the betrayal. He decides he will take responsibility for all of it. Kim pulls out the flash drive and tells him to stop, because he already has all the evidence, and Choi asks if that's a flash drive. The warrior explains that the superhuman who tried to kill him had it, and wants to know if Choi can use a computer. With a grin, the director says he's certified for that. He starts typing quickly on his keyboard. He says the guy was a big shot, having killed at least 20 superhumans. Kim says the code name was Human Hunter, and they need to check the most recent contract. Choi opens the latest one and says it was received 3 days ago. The reward was 20 billion. Both Kims shout about how high that amount is. The warrior asks who would offer that much money. Choi says the requester was someone from the Ascendant Group, and Kim asks if it's someone from a big corporation. The director displays the person's identity. Kim is completely shocked and asks if it was that jerk. Since it was a paladin from House Jo Chul who once gave him a dirty look, things were pretty messed up now. The director asks why that rich kid tried to kill him, and Kim says he has a hunch and wants to seed his family tree. Choi keeps typing, saying he'll find it. He shows it to Kim, who thinks that, just as expected, he knew what was going on. Ascendant Security was a private military company under the Ascendant Group and one of the 5 largest firms in Arcane Seoul. Lee Jae-il, the eldest son of Ascendant Security, was first in line for succession. However, after receiving baptism from the order of the old priest and becoming a paladin, he was pushed far down the line of inheritance. Now the only path left for him is to succeed as a paladin. But the saintess was obsessed with him, calling him light and savior. Kim says that seeing him surpass baptism and rise to prominence must have enraged him enough to hire an assassin, and Choi says he needs a lesson. Iron Fist remarks that the opponent isn't just an heir to a company, but from a family that owns a major corporation, so they can't afford to mess up. Choi says that doesn't mean they should sit still, and Kim says he's right, because he has an idea, and Choi starts flattering him. The warrior explains they have to take down a big shot and will start by targeting his sphere of influence. Woojin, irritated, slams the table, calling him a damn scumbag for trying to bring down his lord. Kim asks him to calm down because he's still alive, thinking that nothing is more reliable than Seo Woojin, who is wealthy and also level 5, and the boy says he won't let this slide, and they should hire an assassin too. Choi says he can't even imagine paying for an assassin. If they try to hire one, it'll be even more expensive, and he argues. Kim tells them both not to worry because he has an idea. He will officially challenge Lee Jae-ol to a duel. Woojin says that's very dangerous. Kim says it can't be avoided, because if they leave him alone, he'll hire even stronger assassins to try to kill him, and Woojin notes he won't fight personally, and will put someone else in his place. The warrior says this world is full of unfair advantages, and if he wins the duel, he'll get a proper apology and compensation. Iron Fist says that, actually, it sounds like the most realistic solution right now. Kim agrees and notes that with clear evidence in hand, he has more than enough justification to challenge him to a duel, and if they allow a private duel, he'll accept. Choi says he will formally send a duel challenge and that they also need an official notary. Woojin says to leave it to him because his parents know a lawyer who used to be a Supreme Court judge. The warrior thanks the group. He asks why they are looking at him like that, since he's not going to lose his life out there. Iron Fist asks if he is that confident of victory, because the enemy knows his strength and will summon at least a level 4 fighter. Kim says it won't be easy. He thinks he might not be allowed to use mutation in an official duel, since it will be harder than when he had to face the president. Yet he says he can already predict whom the enemy will put in the fight. Iron Fist asks if he knows who his opponent is, and Kim confirms, saying that's why he needs time to prepare and wants to train with Woojin. His friend agrees and says he'll help with whatever he can. Kim thanks him and asks him to go easy, thinking he almost lost his life fighting him last time. 3 days later, in an arena, Woojin cheers for the warrior to succeed, and Choi does the same. Kim thanks them, thinking he has trained hard for the past 3 days and is very tired, but thanks to that he finished his preparations. He is ready to face his opponent. Odusik, the paladin captain of the Order of the Old Father, says it's been a while since his last duel. Jael says the captain didn't have to come all the way here, but Dusik tells him to be quiet because he has no right to speak. No paladin of the order will ever lose an official duel as long as he is captain. Kim thinks that Lee Jael acts tough in front of him, but is a mere sheep before his captain and calls him a coward. Dusik says it is a pleasure to meet the warrior. He first apologizes for this unpleasant matter. Kim is surprised, thinking he is apologizing politely. Dusik states that the incident was the fault of one individual, and that his esteemed saintess has nothing to do with it. Kim asks what the order's position is. The paladin says the saintess declared that warrior Kim would be her light and savior. The young man reflects on that, because Jo Chul said the same thing, yet he doesn't know what it means. Dusik proposes the condition that Kim join their order if he wins. Kim repeats the idea of joining the order, wondering why she is so obsessed with him. Dusik says it is the will of his saintess and of his lord. The lawyer approaches, announcing that it is now time to start the duel. With all parties present, they must confirm the contract for the duel oath. If the paladin wins, Kim will join the Order of the Old Father. However, if the warrior wins, Lee Jael is forbidden to harm Kim directly or indirectly and will pay compensation. He asks if that is correct. Both sides accept the agreement. Kim thinks that in Arcane Soul, the duel oath is something magical that makes your heart explode if you break it. Even in this chaotic world, no one would be crazy enough to violate such an oath. They will now proceed to confirm the duel rules, following the international standard regulations set by the superhuman federations. All personal superpowers and weapons may be used. However, consumable items must be crafted on site. Dusik says he is already prepared. Kim says he will make his consumables, and the lawyer notes the time limit is 10 minutes per item. Kim creates 3 vials of potions. He thinks he is basically an alchemist when he swaps his traits like this, because they are elixirs made specifically against paladins. The lawyer states they are the elixir of steel body, the flash elixir, and the magic dragon elixir, and Kim says he will consume them. Doping is essential for him when it comes to PvP. The lawyer announces that now the preparations are finished, they will begin the duel. A counter in the arena stands at 10. The opponents face each other. Dusik says it is an indescribable honor to have the chance for Kim to join their order and suggests he change his mind and come willingly. Kim tells him to drop it. The warrior draws his hammer and says there is no other way, but he tells him not to worry too much because he won't take his life since Kim still has to join the order. Kim thinks the mana is incredible and clearly on a level above his own. No matter how well he prepared, he won't be able to defeat him without risking his life. The counter approaches 1, and finally the counter hits 0. Dusik charges with all his might to wound him. An immense explosion rocks the arena. Kim is unscathed even after Dusik has destroyed the arena, but he vanished in just a second. Yet Dusik dismisses that idea and realizes Kim simply activated his dash trait, shouting that warrior Kim would become a god, leaving the young man utterly stunned. The black flame blast startles the audience. Woojin says Dusik is strong too, and this could really end with one decisive blow. Serin watches the fight and tells everyone to pay attention. The smoke clears and Kim has blocked the strike with his shield, asking if Dusik was talking about becoming a god and what kind of nonsense that was. Dusik is completely taken aback. Kim thinks that, as expected, Dusik opened with his charge, a high-tier skill meant for surprise attacks. But he was fully aware of it, so there was no reason not to block. Even so, that power strike could shatter his third-layer shield. Dusik says a level 3 warrior blocking his attack might help him understand the Saintess's insistence, but Kim tells him to explain this talk about being a god. The paladin says that is exactly what he heard, because warrior Kim is the hope of their order and the one who will save them from the apocalypse. Kim reflects on being the order's hope because when he thinks about it now, the god they serve is dead. Years ago, as the story advanced, the Saintess performed a ritual to revive her god, and a boss battle erupted in the middle of Seoul. Kim asks if by savior they mean turning him into a vessel for their god. Dusik says that is precisely it, calling it a noble sacrifice and sacred devotion. The warrior snaps that those crazy lunatics want to sacrifice him, and Dusik declares that his soul and body belong to the old father and his avatar. Because Kim will lose the duel and join their order, Kim lunges, telling him to stop spouting crap, while the captain blocks with his shield, backing up a little, thinking that is quite some power. Kim reflects that it's because he shifted all his traits to an offensive warrior build. He charges again and slams into the man's shield, thinking he'll harry him with his other warrior skills. Dusik says the young man's swordplay is truly challenging. Kim agrees because now that Dusik is focused on defense, he's exposed, so Kim draws an axe while swapping abilities. Dusik tries to block with his hammer, but the axe pierces his armor. He says this is actually pretty fun. Kim reflects that it's working and his 3 days of preparation weren't in vain, because the reason he trained with Siu Woojin was not only to obtain the skills needed for this duel, but to learn how to switch abilities instinctively within half a second and fight superhumans above his level, using defensive skills when he must guard, retreating as his shield fractures. Kim lunges again with a sword, saying he'll use offensive warrior skills for surprise strikes and other warrior abilities when he needs multiple hits, hammering the shield with simultaneous attacks. He warns that he's right here, activating Berserker to seize the opening because a level 3 against a level 4 can only win by shifting powers. Dusik feels as if he's fighting 4 different warriors, and wonders how that is possible. His hammer is knocked away by Kim's attacks. The paladins gasp, saying it's impossible. Dusik is utterly incredulous, staring at his wound in shock. Kim declares he has won this duel and has no intention of becoming a sacrifice for their order. Dusik concedes that but says he can't go easy on him now. Yet he no longer cares about sacrifices or anything like that, because he'll kill Kim, and Kim had better be ready. He hurls his shield at Kim's guard, and the young man curses the frontal assault. Blasted backward as the shield shatters, he thinks Dusik's power just spiked, and the enemy had been holding back until now. Dusik charges again, asking how Kim can badmouth his order, smashing the young man against the wall once more, and telling him to apologize now. If he does, Dusik will accept his surrender. Kim refuses, getting back on his feet, because there's no way he can win unless he takes Dusik's life. He rushes the paladin with his sword, and they trade blows in a completely insane, unrestrained clash, the shield strike slamming into Kim's shoulder. Kim cracks a smile, swinging his sword and slashing across the abdomen. The paladin kicks him, still seething with rage. The blow hurls Kim against the wall. Dusik pants for breath, and Kim writhes in pain. The paladin shouts that it is time to end this useless battle. He raises his shield and calls upon the Old Father. An immense tsunami materializes inside the arena. Kim says this is Dusik's ultimate skill, the tsunami of darkness, and now that he sees it with his own eyes, it is pure catastrophe. He will lose for certain if it hits him, and there is no way to dodge. To win, he must break through the colossal wave. Kim is afraid but has to trust the abilities he forged as warrior Kim. The mountain-cleaving swordsmanship he never skipped in training. The sword style he learned from Seo Woojin. The Einherjar cultivation technique he spent so much time perfecting. The mana heart that has lived within him for so long. And finally, the dash he obtained in a moment of desperation. At last, the final instant that can cut all things in the universe, the flash. Kim says he will use every one of his skills, and it is time to put all his effort on the line. He lunges with his sword for a thrust, because last but not least, the young man slices through the tsunami second by second. Kim thinks he must believe in himself. Jael asks what that was. Choi also wants to know what is happening. Kim stops after delivering the sword strike. He coughs blood, racked with pain. Dusik says it was a truly magnificent duel, and calls him warrior, his back now torn open. He collapses to the ground, completely defeated. The lawyer raises Kim's hand and declares him the victor. His friends run toward him. Kim thinks he did it. He beat a high-level superhuman without using a mutant skill. Woojin hugs his master, saying he really is the best. Surin jokes that he is totally inhuman. Choi says he knew his master would win, and Iron Fist is stunned by the outcome. Jael hurls insults at Kim. He charges with a hammer, but Woojin steps in to defend. The clash triggers an explosion that forces the paladin to retreat. Jael slams back into his comrades. Woojin tells that piece of trash to stay in his place, saying he was bold to attack his teacher and asking if he really wants to lose his life. The lawyer steps in front of him and says that if he acts recklessly, his heart will explode. Jael kneels, saying that because of warrior Kim, his captain is now beneath the earth. The paladins shout that they need revenge, and the Order of the Old Father will not forget this. Kim asks what he means by claiming Kim killed Dusik, and Jael confirms because he saw it with his own eyes. The warrior tells him to stop talking nonsense, because the one who defeated Dusik was none other than Dusik himself, for even as an enemy, Dusik was an excellent example of a warrior. He did not want anyone's life lost in an open duel because of his enemy's botched assassination plan, born purely of an inferiority complex. And in honor of Dusik, he accepted the duel and kept his promise. Jael seethes with rage, calling for his captain. The paladins tell their lord they must withdraw. Kim thinks that even the Order of the Old Father will not give up on revenge, but he still felt it was fair. At the Shinsu Agency during the day, Choi remarks that he was right. He has officially hired the superhuman warrior Kim, who defeated the captain of the Old Father's order, and he understands the client has requests. Apologizing, he says he will call him shortly. Kim says he was worried Joe Chul wouldn't manage the armor, but he did as asked with giant and extreme traits, and Choi praises him, asking why Kim doesn't take a look, because it is a gift from him. Kim opens the box, astonished, wondering how he looks in the new outfit, and Choi says it is a luxurious training suit with self-cleaning and mana regeneration. The warrior appreciates the director's taste and thanks him, while his boss starts flattering him and asks if he can make a request of the superhuman. He thanks the young man because his business is booming now thanks to their short time working together. People had doubted their relationship. Kim says that in light of that, he asks if the director has any decent work for him, and Choi agrees, saying he has prepared something perfect. The Sun Magic Tower wants to study his black flame for research purposes, and Kim ponders that. The Sun Magic Tower was one of the 4 great magic towers in Seoul, and if he remembered correctly, it was where one could acquire fire-related spells. Choi says they will present the young man with a membership, and Kim says he will accept, thinking that the character at the Sun Magic Tower was exactly where he knew the rewards would come from. Heading to the location that had been indicated, Kim thinks it was a place where science and magic mingle, creating an amazing scene. A scientist asks whether he is the superhuman warrior Kim, saying his own name is Park Hyung-ju and that he is a researcher, and wants to know if Kim is there for the study. Kim confirms the information, thinking the man looked older yet was still quite young, and Hyung-ju says he will not waste his time and they should go that way. Going first to a basic measurement test. Kim thinks the machine looks familiar while the mage asks him to step inside. Hyung-ju tells him to stand still there. As the door closes, the ultra-precision measurement test. Kim thinks this was the machine used to reveal everything about the character to the player, and it is about to expose all his skill secrets now. Kim taps on the glass, asking what the hell this is and telling them to stop the machine because he is not ready. The doctor tells him to stay put because it is a necessary process, and it was all in the contract, while Kim prepares to punch the glass, shattering it right in front of the doctor. Hyung-ju asks what all this means, and Kim says the contract he signed only required him to show the black flame, which is why he cooperated. Someone appears, asking who Hyung-ju thought he was to treat a guest like that, then slaps Hyung-ju across the face. Yu Myung-sok asks how that idiot dared ruin his project again. Hyung-ju says it was a misunderstanding, but his boss rejects that because he wanted to sell all the warriors' information and own the black flame skill. He has a camera recording this, and the researcher apologizes, saying he was blinded by momentary greed. Mungshak tells him to get out because he is now exiled from the team, and Kim wonders what is going on. After a small cough, the scientist turns and apologizes to Warrior Kim, introducing himself as the chief researcher. And he looked in bad shape. Kim says that may be so, but it wasn't their fault, and wants to know what will happen to him. Mungshak explains that idiots sold confidential information out of greed, and if not for Elder Joe, he would have been expelled long ago. Kim says he came there to fulfill the director's request and almost had his personal data extracted, and Mungshak apologizes, saying he will raise the membership level. The warrior asks about the benefits, and the chief says he can use commercial potions and train his own brews, and Kim thinks the magic tower normally had potions only for mages, saying that doesn't sound bad, and the director decides they will rest a bit before the research. Before that, they will take a tour of the magic tower. Kim walks into a room filled with several yellowish orbs. He thinks he was almost tricked, just as expected from Arcane Soul, but everything worked out because there's a big chance to gain amazing abilities from the training. A speaker announces the beginner lightning magic training. The orbs suddenly emit incredible electricity, firing the blast at Warrior Kim, which hits the young man, who groans a little, thinking that it hurts in his bones. But if he can endure it with his traits just a little longer, it will be perfect. Acquiring the electricity resistance skill. Kim says that is good because he finally obtained the 6th and last elemental resistance, and he tells the system to shut down now because he is going to be fried alive at this point. Red lights flood the room and announce that the system has switched to manual mode and the electricity intensity has been boosted. Kim yells that he already finished the training and asks who is outside. Seeing that Kyungju is controlling the system, he says the warrior messed with the wrong person, then increases the electrical discharge to maximum voltage, which fires a massive blast at Kim. The warrior vehemently refuses to accept that, while Hanju watches, begging for Warrior Kim to lose his life.
Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.